So that's going to start. That's going to pop up soon here.
And the show is That Other Side of Information.
The show itself is The Kennedy Effect. The page is That Other Side of Information.
Ah.
Believe it, I tried to name the show, the page, The Kennedy Effect, and it apparently belongs to some punk band.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. My producer, April, tried to, we had problems. Let's put it that way. We had problems. It was not smooth. Let me turn the volume down. Okay, so copy. I got to do the national stuff. Just clear something. Just move something. Turn that hall light off. Here comes all the groups. For anyone who has tuned in early, it's group sharing time. It's pre-production time here on Facebook. We know you all enjoy watching the pre-production part.
It's so much fun.
It is what we live for here, like pre-production beginnings. Let me get Franz into the room. I should do the Restore group. They really love when I share. That's the Republican group that I haven't been kicked out of yet.
Oh.
Really do love when I share the show there. Just a matter of time before they boot me from that one too.
You don't see eye to eye with them? Is that?
They're not big on truth
there,
and not a big fan of fact.
That's problematic. It is.
especially when you and I are going to spend 2 hours talking about the mentality of why they vote. That they don't even know themselves.
Right.
I could be too fond of that. Mm-hmm. Thriving. Future. Citizens. Easton Post. Good stuff. Okay, did I miss anybody? It's 4:56, so I got about 4 minutes.
All right.
Anybody who might be with us on Facebook watching the dreadfully exciting pre-production meeting, just about 4 minutes out from beginning.
Yeah, there
Formal.
are some people out there. Hi, everybody.
The formal beginning, I should say.
Right.
We will not be sharing the show to the Mexican recipes group. We don't do that too much. And the Puerto Vallarta group, we don't send to them. Restore Northampton. God, I really should try. I wonder if I would make it on Restore Northampton. Let's give them a shot. They'll probably kick me out finally. Okay, Puerto Vallarta. The Snoopy group. I don't generally go to the Snoopy group. I think that's everybody. I don't need to share it to my own group because, after all, I run it and I'm on it. Let's zoom out. And now the sound is feeding back on myself because I always forget to turn it down. Comments. Hey, Lisa's in there. Hello, Lisa. We begin formally. 15 people in the group. Wow, you must be bored out of your skulls, gang. 4:57 as I look at the clock. We begin formally at 5:01 when we push the play button on hot101.net for our sisters, brothers, friends, and family at hot101.net. So just hang in there with us. We will be beginning formally shortly. Just remember, for anyone who's in the Facebook group, since we are a little bit early, for anyone in the Facebook group who's at the Facebook page, it says to me currently that there are 17 people watching us at that other side, or 15. It just changed like that. You can stay here at that other side of information. We'll see your comments. We'll see your names, and so on and so on and so on. Stay right here. We appreciate that you are here. And later on in the program, you can actually call in and speak to Professor Brock and myself. So about 2 to 3 minutes before we push play on hot101.net. So don't go anywhere, anyone. We are very, very close to the formal beginning of the program. We have to start this way. I usually review this for you folks at Facebook. We review this every time. We have to start early on Facebook. And of course, the Facebook room went from 17 down to 7. That's usually where I lose everybody. Thanks, Facebook. Just is what it is. Hello, Ashley. Thank you for being here, Ashley. You know, my producer friend, all too often psychiatrist April, tells me stop looking at the Facebook Live number. It's going to drive you mental, and she is not wrong.
Right.
I watched it go from 18 to 3 to 21 to 4 to just, and I really should get over it, but I don't. It makes me nuts. And I watch as that number. See, now it's back to 13. I'm like, yay! And I'm just, I pay way too much attention.
Yeah, it'll go up and down
to that number. I should not be so focused in on that number. So we are not even 2 minutes. It just struck 5. So we'll get a few seconds before we push play. Then you'll know. Ashley Shea is actually going to call in this week. It's my challenge to Ashley. We were having a chat last week about how she can't call in because of the kids. I'm like, come on, Ashley, step up. Time to step up, kid. Come on, call in, call the program. Oh, and they shared it already. You guys are awesome. I think they shared it already. I think I'm right about that. Probably about 30 seconds or so. As soon as I see 501, I'm going to push play. There it is. Okay, here we go, kids. Let's have some fun. Welcome, 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 welcome again to all of you around the world. From my humble second bedroom in the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, part of these United States on planet Earth, the only one we have. Third rock from the sun in the Terran solar system, part of the Milky Way galaxy. This is the Kennedy Effect for 15 November 2020. Welcome, welcome, welcome to all of you. Each and every single one of you. You are all important. You are all welcome here. You are all respected here. We thank you, each and every single one of you, for being here. Wherever you are watching around the world on Facebook, we thank you for being there. Among the 50 to 60 now different pages, timelines, groups, insert proper technical term here that he doesn't always know. We thank you for being there. It is, however, the home base for the page, That Other Side of Information, where we will see you, see your name, welcome you, say hello, and where we will see your comments and questions that you can be a part of throughout the duration of the program. The live chat will be up and operating throughout the program, That Other Side of Information. But if you are watching the program at any of the 50 to 60 places that we share it, Our Revolution Pennsylvania, Our Revolution National, Lehigh Valley Young Democrats, Lehigh Valley Progressive Network, and of course the home Facebook page for hot101.net, among the other 50 to 60 places that we share. We thank you. You are welcome to stay right there and watch and listen with us live. But again, it is our home group page titled That Other Side of Information, where we will see you, be able to say hello, and you can join the live chat. For our sisters and brothers, friends and family at hot101.net, thank you for allowing us to be part of your Sunday evening yet again. If you don't know how to listen to hot101.net, well then why have you not been listening to me all of these weeks? I tell you every week how to be part of the family. Let me run through it again. You can listen to hot101.net by going to the main website page at hot101.net. You can get the apps for hot101.net very easily. They have an app for every way that you can think of it. You can go to the Apple App Store and get the app for hot101.net. If you have an Android device, just go to the Google Play Store and you can get the app for your Android device at the Google Play Store for hot101.net. If you have the TuneIn radio app, just search for hot101.net. This program is not a lecture series. Despite popular belief, it is not a lecture series. We have attempted repeatedly. I yell at you, shout at you, beg you, implore you to make this program as interactive as humanly possible. We want you to be part of this program. So let me take you through how you can do exactly that. Again, the live chat is up and open at That Other Side of Information, the Facebook homepage for all things the Kennedy Effect. Join the live chat. You can put your comments and questions in there. We will say hello to you, and we will make your comments and questions part of the program. We are on the Twitters at That Kennedy Talk. You can live tweet the program. Send us comments, questions, yell at us, disagree, love us, hate us, whatever you want to do, you can do it through the Twitters at That Kennedy Talk. You can email the program, That Other Side, no, what is it? thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. I don't even know my own email address. There's so many ways for you to contact the program. I can't keep them all straight, but we need you and want you to contact the program. This is an interactive experience. I am not here to lecture you. If you want a lecture series, go back to school, which you're welcome to do, or listen to NPR. We love NPR, but they tend to lecture. I don't want this to be a lecture series. I want you to engage us. I want you to learn from this program. I want you to be informed by the program, but I also want you to be a very large part of the program. So learn, engage, contact us, talk to us, be a part of the program. Live chat on Facebook, tweet at us at That Kennedy Talk. Email us, thatotherkennedy@gmail.com, or later in the program, you guessed it, kids, these fancy fun devices that let you actually speak to us. Use the voice. You can speak to us. We will open up the phone line later in the program. Now, let me get to my guest now that we have done. Oh, I should tell you all. Also, over my left shoulder, we figured that out, left and right. Over my left shoulder, you may see, if you're watching the program, some information up there. If you have a product, service, company, anything that you want to promote literally around the planet, you can do so right through this program. Just email us again, thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. Promote your, in these troubled times where it is very difficult to get customers into your business, where business has been restricted, you have to limit the number of folks who can come into your store at any, or your restaurant at any one given time. Please do so. Please promote the business that you have. You can do it here right on the Kennedy Effect. Email us, thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. And yes, I had to look at the screen to remind myself. Again, I've only said it 12 times, but I still have to read and remind myself of my own email address, thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. Also, you will see over my shoulder a list of all the places that you can get the program after we are done with the live stream. You can get the recorded program. Will stay on Facebook here at the homepage, That Other Side of Information. Now I look like I'm doing the weather. See, the front is coming in, and look at here. It looks like I'm doing the weather. That Other Side of Information on the YouTube channel. Yes, we're on the YouTubes, kid. That Other Side of Information on Instagram, and as previously mentioned, the Twitters at That Kennedy Talk. My dear friend, IT professional, associate producer George is not with us this week. He will rejoin us next week. He's on a little vacation holiday with the family, as he well deserves, and I hope he's having fun. I hope he's safe. So for DJ Earl, DJ Lex at hot101.net, and of course, my main producer, my partner, my friend, and all too often my psychiatrist, April Riddick, for everyone associated with the Kennedy Effect, we are thrilled that you are all here. Thank you for being here. So what do you say we get into things right now? And let me introduce my guest, is a new friend, not just to me, but new friend to the program. And that is Professor Rueben Brock. The professor teaches at the California University of Pennsylvania, and he also practices. He's an actual practicing, am I going psychiatrist or psychologist, sir?
So it's actually very complicated. So my PhD is in counseling psychology, but my license is actually in counseling. So I refer to myself as a licensed counselor, even though my PhD is in psychology. So totally confusing.
So why don't we let you do more of the explaining rather than me, since I just did so much explaining of all my extra fun stuff.
Yes.
And let me begin the program the way we always begin the program, and ask you the very simple yet open-ended question of, who are you, sir? Who is Rueben Brock, and how did you get here?
Well, that is a wide open question. And so I'll start with the kind of usual, the easy stuff, who I am. I'm Dr. Rueben Brock. Like you already said, I'm a professor of psychology at Cal U here in Southwestern Pennsylvania. I'm also a veteran of the mental health field. I've spent a lot of time working with people who are in need. And I'm also a husband and father. And I'm recently turned YouTuber. So now my passion and energy has been put into YouTube as of late. So that's my newest claim to fame, is I have two channels that I maintain. One is House Call with Dr. Rueben Brock, which is a show not terribly dissimilar to yours, where I talk about life with different guests from time to time. And I also have a channel called Fatherhood on the Back Nine, where I talk about and explore the phenomenon of being an old man with a brand new baby. I've got a 15-month-old baby, and it's an interesting phenomenon being a new father again at my age. I'm older than I look, by the way. And so that's all the stuff that I do professionally. And the second part of your question, how did I get here? So you want the long answer or the short?
By the way, Professor, everyone, literally, properly, everyone is younger than me.
All right, fair enough.
If you could feel how I feel when I wake up in the morning, everyone younger than me.
Well, I appreciate that. That actually does give me some comfort. So thank you.
So the fact that you have a 15-month-old goes to prove the fact that everyone is younger than me. Let's just be honest.
Right. So the short answer, how I got here, I think I was looking for places, in fact, to promote some of my recent endeavors. And I ran across your show, and I think I reached out to you, and that's how we became connected on Facebook. And so, I'm pleased that you were able to see some value in me stopping by. So that's the short answer. But the long answer to how I ended up here in life where I am is quite the complex story. So when I was very young, I experienced some trauma when my father died when I was age 7. Died of suicide, and I was there, and so were all of my family members. And needless to say, that caused the turmoil that you would expect it to cause. And so throughout my teen and young adult years, I was suffering with the slings and arrows of having dealt with childhood trauma. And eventually I got myself together. I got the help that I needed and got better, but that experience left me feeling as though the mental health field is lacking in people who truly understand mental health, people who truly understand people of color, people who truly understand the fullness of a person. And so that inspired me eventually to go into the mental health field. And so I have spent the last 21 years attempting to be the clinician that I didn't see when I was out there in need. And so that's what took me to the mental health field in general. And then eventually I saw that the things that I was attempting to fix or work with in the world, the things that I was studying in my academic life, because eventually I got a PhD and went into psychology as a scholar. But the things that I was studying and interfacing with in the community, I realized those things needed to be fixed on a more macro scale, on a bigger level, policy level. So I ended up running for office. And so in 2018, I ran for state rep with the goal of bringing some common sense ideas to the legislature in Harrisburg. Of course, I was unsuccessful, but because of that run and because of some of the attention that I got, many people in this area still think of me as a kind of a political player. I don't know the extent to which that is true, but there are people who still think that way. And so I do try to be politically active. And so I see this appearance today as one of those duties, me being out there, continuing to push a message that I believe is important politically.
Is mental health generally in minority communities still the shortfall that it is in, trying to choose my words,
No, go for it.
in white communities? It's not addressed.
Right.
Traditionally
Yes.
not addressed in the same way that it is in white communities. Is it still looked at almost as a get over it, kid?
Yes, it absolutely is. And even when it's not get over it, it is often let's pray on it. It is often you know, we don't tell strangers our business, we don't air our dirty laundry. It's all that stuff. That culturally speaking, yes, it is very, very difficult to get my community to understand the importance of wellness in the mental and emotional realm. Um, and I think that is often true in many minority communities, particularly because there aren't enough clinicians of color. There aren't enough clinicians that would allow minority communities to feel comfortable. Because oftentimes a person isn't going to feel comfortable talking to someone that doesn't look like them, that they don't perceive walks their walk, so to speak, if that makes any sense. It is often easier to talk to someone who you believe can truly understand you fully. And for many people of color, that would be impossible for a person that is not a person of color. And so, yes, it is still very, very difficult. It's a big hurdle in the Black community, access to quality mental health care. It's there are
Not to
lots and
mention,
lots of hurdles.
not to mention the obvious part, which where all communities, the entire economic 99% deals with on a daily basis, me included, is the cost of it.
Right. Yeah, because
You have to prioritize. If you have to
right.
economically prioritize your health care, a broken bone over a broken mind, I'm probably going to get a cast before I come see you.
Absolutely.
And that
And
might sound like a bit of a ridiculous example, but that's just the truth of it. If I have kidney stones, I'm probably going to deal with that first
right.
before I come see you. There's a limited and or finite amount of financial resources, so I'm going to prioritize my healthcare dollar if I have any healthcare dollars at all.
That's right. And not only that, you can go a step further because people prioritize everything. So, it's not always going to be that you're choosing between your broken mind and your broken arm. It's more often going to be you're choosing between your broken arm, broken mind and bread and, milk. And so if, for many people, a copay to come see me is going to be, it can be 40, $50. That's the copay. And so there are many people who don't have a spare $50 a week. And so the idea of coming and doing something so intangible, something that you cannot necessarily see and touch the impact of, it's a very, very difficult sell for many people. And unfortunately, that means that a lot of people say, well, I'll just suck it up, as you said, because I know that I need bread, and I know that when I buy bread, I get to come home and eat that bread. Some people don't necessarily always see the benefit of going and talking to a counselor. And so I think that is not only true, but it is doubly true in African American communities and many communities of color, because people of color are disproportionately impacted by financial difficulties. And so right now you've got, the COVID crisis, you've got the economic ripples of the COVID crisis. And it's bad for everyone, but believe it or not, right now, because of the craziness in the world, the I've probably seen a 200 or 300% increase in my African American clientele at my practice, and I think that speaks volumes about what the world feels like right now.
You are a popular man, sir. I already have some questions and a comment in the chat, which is
Cool.
rare for this program. For folks who are watchers and listeners of the program on a regular basis, it is strange that I should have comments and questions this early. And because I put such an emphasis on interaction, let me get to them, even though that you and I were fortunate enough to have a phone conversation a couple days ago and covered some ground that we want to make sure that we cover.
Right.
As usual, let me deviate. Michelle de Blasio says, Dr. Brock helped our family. He's a great guy. We were featured on House Call. Ruben and his wife are extremely supportive. So there you go. I'm sure that sounds familiar.
Yes.
A friend of mine here in local politics here in the Bethlehem area, Lisa D'Italia, asks, what is the professor's take on the massive number of people committing suicide, dying of drug and alcohol addictions? I ask because last week I heard of, I'm trying to read this straight out of the comments, so bear with me. I ask because in the last week I've heard of 2 suicides and a number of addiction deaths.
Yes.
Is it a mental health crisis that's ongoing and it doesn't ever seem to get any better? What do you recommend to people briefly? I don't know that you can recommend anything briefly.
Right.
To help this devastating tide. Sorry, that's a heavy topic. It is a heavy topic. It's something I'm sure you've probably dealt with on your program quite a bit.
Absolutely.
It would seem to me, sir, that, and it is, by the way, and it's also something that there are many, many reasons for it. I am no mental health professional by any means. And I've been, I'm sure that many listeners and watchers of the program would argue that the state of my mental health on occasion. I should think currently there are quite a number of sources of potential successful suicides, and if you want to use the word successful, and suicide attempts and so on and so on. There is the usual depressive states, bipolar disorder,
right.
But then there is the depression that seems to come from the stay-at-home guidelines from the COVID pandemic, as well as the general economic stress that we are all under. When you wake up every single morning and you are faced with one of the very first questions of the day is, how am I going to economically get through the day? Right. You are just waiting for when 9 a.m., 9:05 comes and the collection calls start coming. Or you can't pay the student loan that day and those collection calls come. You are lucky enough to make it through the end of the day that the car didn't get repossessed, or so on, or so on, or so on, the bank foreclosure for the home, et cetera, medical bills, whatever it might be. I should think an easy place to turn is to that bottle of alcohol, that bottle of pills, whatever it might be. I'm not trying to feed you the answer. I don't need to feed you the answer. You're the professional. But I should suspect that the range of causes of these types of desperation and desperative acts are almost incalculable.
Yes, but it's also easy to see that we are in particularly difficult times. So the easy answer is yes, this is an ongoing crisis in America, the mental health, whatever you want to call it. I've argued for a very long time that mental health in America is handled completely inappropriately, and particularly the drug and alcohol battle, if you will, is handled completely inappropriately and has been for a very, very long time. However, right now in American history is a particularly difficult time, in that we are in the midst of this pandemic, which also caused significant financial struggles for many, many people. And that just so happens to be happening at a time when it feels as though hate and ugliness in America is also at a particularly high point. I know there's a lot of,
I would say since the 60s.
yeah. I mean, we could talk about whether or not America has ever been this ugly, but the in all fairness, the Trail of Tears did happen. American slavery did happen. So we can't sit here and argue that this is the worst time in American history. That's not fair. However, you can, I believe, accurately state that this is at least an uptick. This is a bubble in the timeline of ugliness in America, and all of those things together create a particularly difficult time for people who already struggle with mental and emotional issues, and anyone who is sort of on the fence, on the borderline, so to speak, where your mental health is tenuous on a day-to-day basis. This is enough. This is enough to kick you over the edge. Now, that's the easy part. The hard part is, the last bit of that question, which is, what do you do about it? And if I were in charge, I'm not. Nobody asked me for my opinion except for this nice lady.
I'm asking you.
Right. So
we're here. I'm asking.
Okay. So all right, for us three, the answer that I would give is that we would need to completely change the way we address a lot of issues, but the frontline issue, how we deal with mental health in general, mental recovery from mental illness, it needs to change. It should not cost people money to come see me. There should not be money attached. Well, let me put it this way. There should not be a profit-based model attached to health. And if you remove that, if you could somehow remove that, you would remove one of the barriers, because there are many, many people who choose not to come see me because they can't afford it. And because of the way America works, I can't always afford to waive the fees. I often waive fees for people who can't afford treatment, but if I waived the fee for everyone, I'd go out of business. And so it's not feasible. And so anytime you have a situation where someone, and it's not just mental health, but there are people out there in the world who would have to choose between a new kidney and like paying their mortgage. And those are choices that one should never have to make. And so I would say the first step would be removing the barrier that exists somehow. And whether that's universal health care for all, or some sort of mental health loophole. And there are levels of this that already exist. You could, folks who don't have insurance can, at least in Pennsylvania, go through a mental health loophole and get insurance, because I think we've come to recognize that somebody with, let's say, bipolar disorder or schizophrenia or autism or all kinds of different issues should not be running around untreated, because it's difficult for everyone, right? It's difficult for the teachers when that kid that has autism is not getting the help that they need, and yet they're expected to sit in the classroom. So it causes trouble for everybody. So everyone should have access to the mental health treatment that they need. That would be one. As far as the drug and alcohol, battle, I do think there are lots of overdoses happening right now. And there's lots of research behind that. So that's a pretty safe thing to say. And with that, we need to change, again, the way we treat it. Right now, we treat drug and alcohol issues like criminal issues, which absolutely makes no sense. Addiction is a disease. This is pretty solid stuff. We know that there's a genetic component to it. And a person who is strung out on drugs is not simply making bad decisions. Are there bad choices being made? Sure, but it's not that simple. And more importantly, it's a bad idea when you're addicted to cigarettes. It's a bad idea when you're addicted to sugar. It's a bad idea. All kinds of things. We don't lock people up for that, right? You don't lock a person up when they have diabetes. So we shouldn't be locking people up when they show evidence of drug dependence. We should be getting them treatment. And again, that would remove a barrier.
Is this leading into, again, at the risk of putting words in your mouth, is this leading into a broader Medicare for all idea where mental health is treated on the same level as physical health?
So there's no question that should happen, but that's so fundamentally true that it's difficult for me to accept that I even have to say that. Like, the fact that mental health takes a concrete backseat to physical health in our healthcare system makes absolutely no sense. Each insurance company carves out behavioral health as a separate issue, right? So I am a provider. I am treated differently as a mental health provider than a physical health provider is treated. And it just simply doesn't make sense. And if you don't believe me, just try living with a broken arm for a little while and then try living with schizophrenia for a while. I guarantee you'll choose the broken arm. And so, recognizing this, we have to begin to be honest with ourselves and say, listen, we've got to put these things on par with where they're supposed to be. And we've got to make sure people have treatment when they need it, period, point blank. There should not be discussion about that. But that's a very difficult sell in America because, immediately when you say that, people will say, where does the money for it come from? And so
let me ask you about this then at the risk of, I warned you I was going to interrupt.
No, it's okay.
Let me ask you about this then. You and I are both residents of the Commonwealth, even though we are in very disparate areas in the Commonwealth. I'm actually looking up where Washington is right now, 4.5 hours away from me, not too far outside of Pittsburgh.
Correct.
Would you say that you're in a more rural area, or would you consider yourself a Pittsburgh suburb?
Well, I live in what would definitely be considered suburbia in the particular place that I'm in, but Washington County, there's no question, Washington County is very rural. I could drive 5 minutes in any direction and see a cow. So
how do you, in a Commonwealth like ours, so this is not an unusual problem all across the country, because we're very fortunate here. I continue to knock on wood and be very, very blessed. This program goes literally around the globe and around the country. We are a little arguably more Commonwealth focused than we probably should be, because I happen to live here and this is where my friends are. Right. But the program goes around the country and and all over the globe. But within this Commonwealth, we do have a significant segment of the population that is very, very in love with their firearms. And we know that the scientific data proves, and you will be able to correct me if I'm wrong, that because I'm working out of memory, I could probably try to DuckDuckGo it quickly, but I usually get my search terms wrong, and then I end up with something completely different, right. or I end up in a section of the web that I don't want to be in. Right. But the propensity for suicide increases when there is a firearm in the home, I believe by at least double, if not by 40%. Am I in the ballpark there?
I don't know that stat, but that makes some sense to me. It's not a terrible surprise. But what's the question?
Is that something that you find in your practice, that you have the quote unquote rugged individualist in your office, but yet also, no, you're not touching my damn gun, but by the same token, you're only 10 steps away from using it.
Yeah. So there's a lot in that question. First, I would push back against the idea of...
I don't do a lot of yes and no questions.
Fair enough.
Not a lot of yes and no going on.
but so I hate the idea of mental health and gun ownership being on opposing sides, right? But because that's a false dichotomy. They are not opposites. Are there?
I'm only asking from the point of view is that it does make that final act that much easier.
Yes. There's no question.
That's the standpoint from which I'm acting,
okay,
or from
that
which
makes
I'm
sense.
acting. I'm not. This is not a Second Amendment debate.
Okay.
That I'm trying to drag you into. I'm simply saying the facts and the data suggest they do more than suggest. They prove that if you have a firearm in the home, that the chances of it's an odd
completed
word.
suicide. Right.
Completed. Thank you
Yep.
for giving me the word completed, not successful. That's
right.
an odd word. That's an odd word to use. A completed suicide.
That's true.
Increase by anywhere from 20 to 40%.
Yes.
Because the method, the tool,
right,
dare I say, is there.
Right.
It's right there.
Right. That's right. And so, right. Gunshot suicide attempts are just so much more lethal than drug overdose or of the many different options that are available. Yes, a gunshot wound makes it far more likely that your suicide comes to fruition. But even in the face of that knowledge, I don't see that as a justification for altering much of the conversation about gun ownership. The only little piece that I would say in my mind, and my mind comes with 21 years of mental health experience and 12 years of college, so take it for what it's worth. But in my mind, right.
Yeah. Right. Only that much schooling, only.
But the major issue that I would have, and where I tend to get pushback from people on the right side of the political spectrum, is that I would argue that I need to have the ability, I being a licensed mental health professional. So you're talking licensed counselors, you're talking licensed social workers, psychologists, psychiatrists. Okay, there's your list, or maybe nurse practitioners and medical doctors as well. But those of us who are likely to hear the story of someone who says, I want to hurt myself, I should have the ability to notify someone, some mechanism that says that person now shouldn't be able to at least go buy a gun today, right? So everyone in America has the right to own a gun because that's how America works. But if you tell me, a trained professional with experience and the ability to discern when you're in troubled waters, if you tell me that you want to hurt yourself, I think it's reasonable for me to say, hey, you know what? You probably shouldn't be able to go to, wherever you like to go buy guns and buy a gun today, because the chance of you wanting to buy that gun and go hunting right now are relatively low because you're depressed. You don't have motivation. The one thing you might have motivation to do is use that firearm against yourself. And so this is not a great time to go buy a gun, right? But today in America, I don't have that ability. I cannot make that phone call. It is against the law. And so, the only place that I see the conversation about mental health and guns being relevant is that currently in our system, we don't have anything that allows me to keep a person safe from themselves in their darkest moment. I can keep the world safe from you. In other words, if you call me, if you're in my office and you tell me that you're going to go kill your best friend, I'm obligated to call your best friend and let them know that you want to kill him. If you tell me you're going to hurt yourself, I'm obligated by law to call the authorities, see that you get some help. But if you do anything short of that, if you just insinuate that you want to die, I am not permitted to call or tell any authority that would stop you from purchasing an extremely lethal tool to be used for suicide homicide. And so that's the only bone that I have to pick with the gun rights folks is that we've got to at least be able to be reasonable and honest about certain things. And a person in active psychosis probably shouldn't go buy a gun. A person suffering from schizophrenia or bipolar, or there are several situations where I just wouldn't want a person to be able to go buy a gun in a moment's notice in a fit of rage, because the fact of the matter is, I own a gun. When I bought my gun, I was in and out of the store within an hour. And so, you can still be angry in an hour. You know what I mean? You can buy a gun in anger and go out and kill someone. And there's not a whole lot that we can do about that. But if you tell your mental health professional that you are thinking about hurting yourself, your mental health professional probably should be able to say, hey, I don't think you should buy a gun right now. And so
remember all that pre-planning that you and I did?
Yes.
Okay, to hell with that. I got another question.
Oh,
that went out the window.
Right.
There's two statements in there. Question from Liz, regular listener and watcher. I'm very appreciative of that as well. This pandemic has also been extremely hard on children and teens, especially ones that were already suffering on or on the brink of mental illness, social isolation, not being able to leave their homes, trying to adapt to online only learning environments,
right,
watching their parents try to adapt as well. How do you think this will impact them as they transition into adulthood? Another simple question for you.
Yes, very simple, easy to answer.
Another up or down, one or zero, yes or no question for you. Yet another in a series of easy questions for you.
So that's a very good question that I've actually.
And I think if I might expand on the question a tiny bit, I think. Dare I say, if I'm without trying to put words into Liz's mouth, the question, I think the key to the question, if I might, is that it's teens. It's that in between age, not children who tend to, generally speaking, adapt rather easily because they're just relatively carefree, et cetera, but these are teens. They kind of know what's going on and they're not quite as carefree, and adulthood is not too far away.
Right.
So how do they carry this into their adult years?
So I agree with you that the teens are struggling a lot, maybe even struggling most. But long term, I'm far more concerned about the very young kids. And I'll tell you why. Teens have developed many of the skills that they need already by the time they're teens. And so this pandemic is a little late to fundamentally change the way they interact with the world. Okay. Is it making them a little more anxious? Absolutely. Is it hurting them socially and disconnecting them, particularly people who are already a little disconnected? Is it doing more to them than they're used to? Absolutely. But they already have a foundation and a basic understanding of how to interact with the world. And so they will launch into adulthood with that firm foundation already there, this pandemic being a hiccup in their story. A young person, 4 years old right now, they are not getting the normal socialization that we want a 4-year-old to get. A 5-year-old going to school for the first time, learning how to share, learning how to cooperate, learning how to talk to friends. These are things. So there, in human development, there are what we call critical periods. There are times in which you need for certain things to happen. And the best example I can give you is if the first 5 years of your life, you lived them in the woods with no human contact, you would have a very difficult time learning how to speak later on in life, because at the time when your brain was developing what should have been your skills for verbal communication, you were not using them. And therefore you will never develop fully in that arena, so to speak. So the social skills that are necessary to be learned early in life, we're talking primary school. If you're now in the midst of a pandemic and you're seeing your teacher and your peers only electronically, it fundamentally changes what is the foundation of your interactions with the world. And so if this pandemic happens to last a little too long, I'm actually very concerned about those kids and their ability to bounce back, because this will become their new normal. And so teaching them to adjust later on could very well be difficult. I mean, this hasn't happened in over 100 years. So, there isn't going to be a ton of research on what it's like if you suddenly don't have normal social interaction for a year or two. You know what I mean? So I'm concerned about them, but the teens, they're going through it right now. And this actually speaks to where the world is right now. And if you've ever watched The Social Dilemma, it's a really good documentary that speaks to this. Our society is fundamentally changing because of social media. And our world is becoming more and more disconnected while feeling more connected through social media. So we are disconnecting emotionally and having these superficial connections that are instant and change the way we see the world. And now you've got these teenagers with whom they are not getting to balance that with a normal amount of real human contact by going to school, by going to work. And so it is making them feel even more isolated, even more lonely than they were before. And that is a real problem for them. But my hope is that, again, in their story, this will be a smaller blip. If you've been around already for 17, 18 years, the last 9 months is impactful, but might not alter you in a fundamental way. Whereas I'm concerned that this pandemic is altering the 3-year-old that's going through it right now, because it's changing the whole experience of life for them. My daughter is 15 months old, and 6 months ago, it was easier for her to have guests come to the house. Today, she's actually a little skittish around people because she's not used to seeing many people.
5:48. I forgot my bottom of the hour reset, which is very, very lax of me. It is 5:48 Eastern time here in the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley. This is the Kennedy effect for 15 November, he tried to say, tangling over his tongue, which is always excellent for the radio person to do, to not be able to speak clearly. Really, really awesome for the radio guy when you can't understand what he is saying. This is the Kennedy effect for 15 November 2020. My guest is Dr. Rueben Brock. Wherever you are watching us on Facebook, we thank you. Each and every single individual, every single one of you who is watching, listening across the myriad of places where we share the program on Facebook. Thank you for being there. If you are watching this on the recorded version later in the week, if it's anywhere from Monday to the following Sunday, thank you as well. You are appreciated. You are welcome to be here where it ever is that you are watching. If it's 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, we're just glad that you are consuming and taking in the program. We hope you enjoy it as much as everyone who is with us live. We thank you so very, very much. But for those of you with us live, wherever you're consuming, watching the program, thank you. You can stay exactly where you are, continue to enjoy. Awesome. We're just glad that you're there. If you would like to join us on the home group page and be part of the live chat, which is very, pardon the pun, lively at the moment, please do so. The home group page for the program is That Other Side of Information. That Other Side of Information. I will see you. I will say hello. We have already taken comments and questions, taken us directly off the path that Dr. Brock and I talked about when we spoke on Friday. But we will get back to that. You can tweet the show. I would like to. I hope you're all sitting down. The show is up to a massive. Are you ready? Are you ready, everybody? 6 followers. Yeah. You know you're impressed. You're impressed. We're up to a massive 6 followers. Hey, give us a follow on Twitter if you would. Just look for Jeff Kennedy. I think that's what we are. No, it's at that Kennedy Talk. It's not me personally. It's a Twitter account for the show. At that Kennedy Talk. See, when George isn't here, I don't know what's going on the technology side, and then nobody can find us in the technology.
Right. That's why they can't find it.
Where's George when I need him? At that Kennedy Talk. You give us a tweet. We can take your comments and questions that way as well. After 6 p.m., I will put the phone number on the screen and I will start saying it to you so repetitively that you will wish I wasn't. And we will take your phone calls and comments and questions that way. Hey, our sisters, brothers, friends, and family at hot101.net, thank you. And we mean that with all our hearts. I am exceptionally proud. And I know I say it every week and it sounds exceptionally repetitive. That's because I mean it. I genuinely mean it. I am sincerely proud, happy, and humbled to be part of the hot101.net family. It means everything to me and it means everything to this program. We are thrilled to be with you yet again. However it is that you consume hot101.net, we are happy to be back with you on your devices, your speakers, your smart speakers, if you're in the car, if you're working and listening to hot101.net in the background, if you're cooking, if you're having dinner with the family, watching the ball game, whatever it is, we're just happy that you are with us. We take a break from the excellent music that is constantly going on hot101.net to bring you something a little bit different, some education, some information, and we want you to be part of the program. You can listen to hot101.net at the main website page, which was recently redesigned about 2 months ago, I think it is now. It looks beautiful. It is exceptionally easy to use. You can listen there. You can go through either of the apps, the Apple app, the Android app at the Google Play Store, or the TuneIn radio app. Just search for hot101.net. Of course, the Facebook page, which is you can also be watching the show there at the Facebook page right now, the hot101.net Facebook page. If you want to advertise with the program, email us, thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. It is amazing. If you're watching, you can see me glancing to the screen to remind myself of my own email address, which I think is a new phenomenon. I don't know why I have forgotten my own email address, but I have to keep reminding myself. And over my shoulder, you will find all the places where you can find the recorded version of the program after we do the fancy technical things to it that need to be done. We have a YouTube channel, That Other Side of Information. You can find us on Instagram, That Other Side of Information, and again, Twitter, at That Kennedy Talk. And again, I will bring you the phone number he tried to say as his brain kicked into gear. The phone number shortly after the top of the hour. Hajir says hello to you too, sir.
Hello.
You were on her program. I think you were on her program. Am I reading that right? Yes. I think you were on her program not long ago, if I'm reading that. Or will soon be, if I'm saying that, if I'm reading the comment correctly. Okay. So you and I had a chance to talk on Friday. As the audience well knows, I always speak to the guests a little bit ahead of time so that they know how the program is going to work and so on. And we had a chance to, you will be on her program soon. Did you know that?
I didn't know that. So I was like,
Surprise.
wait, what?
You're going to be
kind
on the Gear show very shortly.
Very cool. Very cool.
I got to you first. So here's the practice. You're doing the JV squad first, and then you're going to do the varsity when you go to his year show. So I got you all warmed up. So
Right.
But then you have your own as well. So that's, that's
Yes.
awesome. So I usually always make a joke for guests here that have their own shows, but I'm not going to joke that too, because I don't want Dr. Brock psychoanalyzing me. You don't have enough programs. I'll be the 52-week guest. I mean,
Right.
That's a long year. That's a long year. Nobody wants to break that down. One of the things that we had a chance to talk about when we spoke on the phone is where we thought we were going to go with the program, but we were I'm always thrilled to get questions and comments, and I think that's great. And so, you know what? Actually, no. Let me save what we talked about for after the top of the hour.
Okay.
There's a comment in here that I wanted you to speak about. Oh, can I find? Ashley mentions teens and children don't have access to mental health care in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania without their parents' consent. A, is that correct? And B, what are your thoughts about that?
So thankfully that is incorrect. So in Pennsylvania, you have the right to your own mental health treatment at age 14. So theoretically, a 14-year-old could call me and say, I'd like to set up an appointment. Now, the hiccup is that somebody has to pay for it. And 9 times out of 10, a 14-year-old isn't going to be able to pay for it without some caring adult covering the bill. But theoretically, a 14-year-old could circumvent their parents, create a relationship with a therapist, go to therapy every week without ever telling mom or dad. And I am under no obligation. And in fact, I am not permitted to let their parents know unless I am concerned about a safety issue of some kind. If there is a safety issue, we're talking about a minor, I am required by law to talk to mom and dad in certain situations. But those situations are pretty prescribed. So it's not like you're making bad choices, I got to call your mom. It's more like you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to hurt somebody else. I'm obligated to tell someone, and part of that chain would be calling mom and dad. So no, it can be done. Again, because healthcare is tied to money in America, there is a hurdle. There's a significant hurdle for a 14-year-old, 15-year-old to come and get treatment. And my feeling on that is that it's good that the 15-year-old, the 14-year-old, they're allowed to come in without mom and dad. That part is great, but it's a little bit silly when you think about the fact that, the bill is going to go to the kid in that scenario. And I don't know about you, but I don't really always feel great about sending a bill to a 15-year-old, you know what I mean? Saying, hey kid, you owe me $200. I wouldn't do that. I would have real difficulty with that kind of thing. So, is it feasible? Is it doable? Yes. Is it feasible? Maybe.
If we know that in a overly capitalist and neo-fascist America, where everything is for profit,
right?
If I could wave my utopian wand and remove the profit motive, what would be the age or is there an age where you would cut off that removal of mom and dad from the process? If there is even an age, or should mom and dad always be involved in the process? Could you see is 14 too young? Is 13 too young? Is 12 too
No,
young?
no, I actually like where it is. I like age 14 is pretty solid in my opinion. And the reason is, if you look at cognitive development, you're talking Piaget, you're right around the correct age for a person to begin to understand abstract thoughts. And so they are able to understand the subtleties and nuances of their own mental health, and could possibly benefit a lot from treatment, and may very well want to have that treatment outside of the supervision of a parent. And I believe that that is something that should be okay, is very, very important. And I would protect that right at all cost.
Yeah, it seems it's always a sticky area, right? Because mom and dad
Right.
they want to, well, at least you hope they want to be involved.
Yes.
I mean,
and I'm a parent. So,
Right.
I have a 16-year-old son. And so if I found out
Doctor,
that
16 down to 15 months, huh?
yes, I know.
That
Well,
is
here's
that's quite
the mind-blowing part.
Yeah, it's quite a.
No, don't. It gets better. I have a 27-year-old daughter.
You're right. It does get better.
See,
That's
quite the spread.
it is quite a spread.
And that's why that's actually what that was the catalyst for that. I have the YouTube vlog that I have, which is all about my parenting experiences, because I recognized that the dad that Ella is getting is completely different than the dad that Dominique got. Because I was a kid. So, when I was 20, parenting was like, let's go to the mall. You know what I mean? I'll buy you some ice cream. But today it's far more intentional. It's far, I feel bad for my son. My daughter, she's off in the world doing her thing. But my son, he got to see the transition, because he kind of straddled the middle of both of those eras, if you want to call them that. And my poor son, so he gets to sit at dinner with a college professor. Like, I feel bad for that kid. It's probably torture being my son, because not only am I a college professor, I'm also like the most intense person ever. Like,
He's always on the couch too.
Yeah, it's always, I'm always on
the couch.
And so, I feel bad for the people who have to be close to me. However, that's just who I am. And so, yes, I've got 27, 16, and 15 months, but the 16-year-old, if I happen to find out that my son was in therapy and I didn't know it, there'd be an instant, sting, right? It would hurt. And there would be an instant worry, and let me find out what's going on here. But then I would hope that I would take a step back and say, geez, if he felt the need to go around me and call a therapist and get help, whatever it is that he needs to talk about, I want him to keep talking about it. And I'm going to trust the mental health professional to do what they need to do, and to contact me if it ever should come to be that I need to know. Because that's the way it works anyway. If there's a real, hair on fire type moment, I'm calling mom anyway. And so anything short of that, I'm hoping that a parent will let us do our work so that they can get what they need. Because that'd be a bold statement if a kid, and it happens, kids will say, what'll happen? Here's what happens. He says to mom, I need you to call me a therapist. And they maybe go back and forth about what type of therapist they want. And then they end up with me. And the mom says, I don't know why little Johnny wants to talk to you, but he does. And I say, okay. And I say, well, let's kick mom out of the room and we talk. Soon as that door closes behind mom, the real issue, whatever's the real stuff that mom has no idea about, it all comes out. And then they say, or before they start talking, they say, do you have to tell my mom everything I say? And when I say, no, I'm literally not allowed by law, they're like, oh, cool, this is great. And then they tell me everything. But if they thought, well, he's just going to call your mom when you're done, they wouldn't tell me anything. And so, it wouldn't work. And so that's why it's important.
6:05 Eastern Time in the United States. I know I just reset the program about 15 minutes ago, but I want to reset it again because now we're actually going to get into what Dr. Brock and I discussed on the phone and get into the program that we thought we were going to have, but that's okay. No problem. Again, you can't beg for interaction and then complain about interaction. So that's awesome. But anyway, 6:05 Eastern Time in the United States. This is the Kennedy Effect for 15 November 2020, wherever you are watching on Facebook. Awesome. You can stay where you are. That's great. Watch, listen, enjoy. Cool. That's great. If you want to engage with us and be part of the live chat, come to the home group page, the home base for all things the Kennedy Effect, that other side of information, that other side of information on Facebook. To our sisters and brothers, friends and family on hot101.net. The main website page is hot101.net, the Apple and Android apps, and on the TuneIn radio app. You can engage with this program. In fact, I demand it. I want you to engage with this program. Some folks have done so already through the live chat. I want to welcome David for being here as well. David Rodriguez, the chair of the Latino caucus for the Pennsylvania Democratic Party,
nice.
The program.
Welcome, David.
David for being here. You can email us, thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. You can join us on the Twitters. You can tweet us at that Kennedy Talk. You can do that. No one has, but you can, because I have, a whopping 6 followers. So nobody's done that so far, but you can. At that Kennedy Talk. Again, the live chat is up on Facebook. And if you're watching the program anywhere on Facebook, you will see that my header on my square screen has changed. The phone line is open.
Yes.
I have explained this to you before. It's very, very simple. I have a little free software program called Google Voice. I am able to take one phone call at a time, and you will kind of ring in dead square center in the middle of a potential conversation. I will hear the phone ring. We will grab it straight away. Even if it's in mid-sentence, we will grab you and take that phone call. The phone number is on the screen, 267-227-9189. Hot 101 family. If you're not watching, just taking the audio, I will continue to give the phone number. Write it down. Join us if you have questions for myself and or Dr. Brock.
Yes.
You may call us immediately, anytime. The line is open, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. But I also want to remind everyone out there listening as well, if you have a company, business, product, service, or anything that you wish to promote literally around the globe. When you purchase advertising with the Kennedy Effect, you don't just get these dulcet tones to read your advertisement, you live on the program. But remember, the program lives on in a recorded version, not only on the 50 to 60 Facebook pages and platforms where it's shared, but you will be on the YouTube channel, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And that advertisement goes everywhere that the program goes. So it is really quite a bargain. If you have a business, company, program, product, service that you want to promote, email us at thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. I don't know why I'm having a mental block about my own damn email address tonight. I have to keep looking at the other laptop to remind myself of what my own email address is. thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. And that is the email address for all things the Kennedy Effect. thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. You can email us comments, questions, show suggestions, guest suggestions, but also if you'd like to advertise with the program, that is where to get us. That is the email address for all things the Kennedy Effect. thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. So again, the phone line is open, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. Dr. Brock, when we spoke on Friday, we had a general idea of what it is that we wanted to talk about. So I would like to try to get into that right now.
Okay.
Here we go. Let's get into it. We had a small thing on November 3rd called an election.
We did.
I wanted to get into your psychological profile, breakdown, thoughts, takeaways, and so on from that election. So we have a new president or president-elect. We will have a new president sworn in on January 20th. And I suppose I could say that this discussion really for us should begin 4 years ago and not just on November 3rd.
Right.
But just shy of 71 million people voted to keep things going the way they have been for the last 4 years.
Right.
So I begin with an extremely open-ended question. And as we talked on Friday, you were kind enough to tell me that this is something that you had just worked on in class with your students.
Yes.
What is the psychology of 71 million people voting against their own self-interest?
Right. So that's a big question. You already know that's a big question. However, let me start with a couple things. One,
we have to start the conversation somewhere. There has to be an opening.
Absolutely.
We have to have an opening question.
There's got to be a first start. Yeah. So let me start here. First of all, it'd be dangerous to suggest that 71 million people are all in the same place mentally, emotionally, intellectually. However, what I'll say is 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago, I started seeing a trend, and the same trend that made Donald Trump popular made Bernie Sanders popular. People who are tired of kind of the political business as usual. Okay. There's this very strong aversion to what appears to be manipulation by an elite group of aristocrat. I always think of the Disney. Now that I say that, every time I say that word, because I have kids, I think of Aristocats. If those of you have kids,
I was thinking too. You got a 15-month-old. You probably watched the Aristocats on Disney Plus not long ago.
And I actually see. I'm OG. I watched it with my daughter way back in the day. But it was a great movie. That was a good movie, Aristocats. But anyway,
one of the originals too, by the way.
That's right.
Disney movies.
That's the good stuff.
Not this fancy Frozen stuff. This is one of the originals. This is one of the
I don't mind the new stuff, but I'm old school, so I like the old stuff.
This is one of the originals.
But there is.
I'd like to recommend one of the dreadfully underrated Disney movies, The Brave Little Toaster.
The Brave Little Toaster?
You have not seen The Brave Little Toaster yet.
I have not.
Watch that with your daughter. I'm
going to have to check this out. The Brave Little All right.
Look for it on Disney Plus with your daughter, The Brave Little Toaster.
Okay. So
underrated Disney movies ever.
I'm going to have to check this out.
Okay.
But I started to see this growing segment of the population that is just tired of being, and we talked about this on Friday, tired of being manipulated, tired of being talked down to, tired of being
lied to.
Lied to, tired of feeling like pawns in their game. Okay. And so they wanted to find someone. There was this, the Tea Party, and there are on both sides of the political spectrum, there are these people who are tired of business as usual and want something different. I mean, if you really want to get down to it, that's what Obama won on. I'm going to do it different. I'm going to change the system, right?
Hope and change.
That's right.
So
Change.
you've got to go all the way back to Obama's first election to recognize the rumblings of this beginning. Okay. So people are saying, I'm tired of this political elite stuff. The problem that happened is that on some level, Barack Obama was not enough of a variation from the norm, right? So a lot of people became disenfranchised when he didn't fundamentally change the way American politics work. A lot of people wanted him to go in there and like wreck shop and like revamp the system completely. And when he didn't,
said that he campaigned like Franklin Roosevelt and governed like Bill Clinton.
Right. Right. And so there are lots of people who were disappointed, disillusioned by that, right? The fact that he didn't alter the system in any fundamental way after saying it's going to be different now. And we could go on about why we think he didn't do that, but I digress. So now you've got people after Barack Obama who are really tired of business as usual, and even more so now want something different. And on the left, you got Bernie Sanders, and on the right, you got Donald Trump. And what I saw 4 years ago was that the establishment of the Democratic Party wasn't actually listening, right? They were not listening to the fact that many people on both sides of the aisle wanted something different. And so they kind of pushed Bernie Sanders to the side and pushed Hillary Clinton to the front. And that left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth. And lots of people said, including me, lots of people said, you know what, skip it. I don't even care because this is a bunch of crap. And the people on the right said, hey, you know what? I think we could do something with this guy, this Donald Trump. He's not one of them. He's not the political elite. He talks the way I talk. He seems to think the way I think. So maybe our interests are aligned. Maybe he's the guy who will bring about change. And then you know, there's a really healthy contingent of folks who were insulted by the very presence of Barack Obama. You know, for many people, that was a purely racial thing. But also he's the epitome of the what they believe is their enemy, which is the ultra elite, ultra educated, you know, uses big words, kind of sophisticated talker, right? And a lot of people in America said, you know what, I want the opposite of that because that hasn't worked. So I want the opposite. And Donald Trump and the Republican Party in general are really good at marketing, right? They're good at convincing folks this is what you should see when we present this to you. This is what you should feel. This is what you should think. And they buy it because the messaging is so good that they buy it, and they're selling a bill of goods that if you'd really studied it, you'd recognize there's just no substance to it. Donald Trump, there's no substance there, right? He's not, it's not real, right? He's pretending to be an average Joe. I mean, which he's not. And he's pretending to have the interest of the average Joe in his mind, which he couldn't possibly, because he's nowhere near an average Joe, right? I mean, he was born wealthier than most people will ever see in their life. So that alone changes everything. But his interests are aligned with the ultra wealthy because that's how capitalism works, right? The people at the top have different interests because it's literally a different set of rules for people at the top of the financial system. And that's by design. That's not like some nefarious plot. That's how it works. That's how capitalism works. The people who have the most money make the rules. And so what's happening? You asked how they could vote against their own interests. A couple of things. One, they believe they're voting for someone who is thinking of them. But two, and most importantly, in my opinion, the average American is just uninformed about most things, right? The average American today simply doesn't know all that much about the stuff that impacts their world. So So, saying, yeah, but why are they voting against their own interests? Here's the problem. They don't know they're voting against their own interests because the average Joe doesn't read the, the newspaper, let alone the Wall Street Journal and and the New York Times. They're not reading anything. They're watching television and accepting whatever they're being told. And it's, from a psychological perspective, there are all kinds of things that explain why it is that somebody simply buys some of this stuff hook, line, and sinker. But the fact of the matter is, if someone's saying the stuff that you want them to say, your tendency is going to be to believe them because you wanted them to say it anyway. And so Donald Trump is saying all the stuff that people would want him to say. He's attacking all the people that they wish they could attack. He is disliking all the people they already dislike. He is saying he's against all the things that they are against. And so they're like, listen, I'm going to vote for him. And they're not going to look into what he's actually doing. They're only going to pay attention to what he's saying because they don't look up voting records. They don't look up what's in, the different legislation. They're not diving in deeply. And so they don't even have the evidence that would lead them to believe that he's actually working against them, which he is. And it's a catch-22 because me saying that will turn them off because here I am. I'm one of these ivory tower elite scholars saying, calling them, at least in their minds, yeah, he's calling us dumb. He's saying we don't understand. The fact of the matter is the average person on the right and on the left, the average person is simply uninformed. And that goes back to far before Donald Trump. And in America, somewhere in the 80s, we adopted this kind of like, mediocrity is okay kind of philosophy. And it is changing our world on a fundamental level. And one of the major impacts is that people no longer even aspire to be very, very smart. They no longer aspire to be very, very informed. There's actually this rejection right now happening in America, a rejection of expertise. The most interesting phenomenon that I experience on a daily basis as a scholar is that when I'm on social media talking, many people don't recognize that when we are talking, particularly about the way the human mind works, we're not equal, right? So, it's the same as like, if I want to have my house built, right? And the contractor comes and he shows up and there's like nothing, it's just dirt. And there's a contractor with his crew. And he says, all right, I'm going to build you a house. And I say, okay, cool. And he gets started. And every day I show up and I say, you know what? I don't think you should do that. You should probably not do that. And I don't think that works like that. The contractor would be like, what are you talking about? What is your expertise here? You're not a contractor. You're not trained in these trades. You're not a carpenter. You're not then please go home. Like I'll do my job and you do yours. Right. The average American no longer understands that concept, that there are experts in everything, right? And that we would be better off listening to the experts in any given thing. And so when you have all of the scientists that study the environment saying, human nonsense is contributing significantly to the demise of our planet, many Americans are like, yeah, but what do they know? And that's the real response that many people have is like, yeah, but what am I going to listen to a bunch of scientists? And it's like, well, yes, literally, that's what you're supposed to do.
Do you feel this is a willful ignorance, or is it a directed ignorance from right-wing hate media?
I can't even say that I would. Go ahead.
Or is it both?
I would say maybe even none of the above. So I'm not going to let right-wing hate media off the hook. But what I will say is the left wing is just as rabid as the right wing. So in all fairness, there's a problem on both sides. But The real issue is American culture no longer encourages excellence of any kind. It's simply not what we do, right? Americans are okay with just being okay. And I believe that is the fundamental problem. People don't necessarily.
So where does that fit in with this right-wing driven ideal of American exceptionalism?
Well, because that's propaganda. So the right-wing media is pushing propagandized patriotism. Okay, that's what they sell. They sell patriotism to people, and they're playing on the way humans are wired. People are wired to believe and want to believe that their group is the best group. That is inherent. That would be the case. I don't care where in human history you drop yourself, you will see that, right? So it's not strange. People want to say like rah rah America, and that's cool. The problem is if you're saying rah rah America without anything of substance behind it, like let's actually be the best at some stuff, then it's empty. And the problem is that because people are not informed, they don't know that these are empty patriotic statements, right? Because people say, even the whole slogan, "Make America Great Again." I always like to say, well, okay, but if you're saying America was great at what point? Point to the point where America was great. What kind of greatness are you looking for us to get back to? And there's nothing behind that. What's that?
Whose definition of great?
That's right. Whose definition of great? Because the times in American history when you would likely get them to point to are the times when other people were most oppressed, right? And so, you've got to be careful about being nostalgic in America in particular, because America has a very problematic history of subjugating and denying people of rights. And so, informed people know that and say, okay, then we need to push for America to be the great country that it theoretically seems to mean to be. But we've got to get there, right? And that's exactly what the framers did. The founding fathers created a system that could be tweaked because they recognized that humans aren't perfect. And today, the right wing, the conservatives, are actually the ones against continuing to grow and tweak as the founding fathers suggested we should. So if you think about that, it is actually backwards, right? If you wanted to be conserving American ideals, you would have to accept that you would continuously tweak America until we actually have freedom and justice for all, right? But that is the very thing that you won't hear in the conservative world, right? They will say individual rights, states' rights, blah, blah, blah. But when the rubber hits the road, it tends to be the erosion of actual lived experience of those rights that comes from the stuff that they want to do. And so
then if you're one of those 71 million,
yeah,
if you are literally a poor white Southern Mississippi, Alabama, old Confederacy, poor white Montana, Idaho, North Dakota, South Dakota, West Virginia. I think I might have said that. And even if all or the only media that you take in is Fox's, the Limbaughs, the Hannitys, the Drudges, the Breitbarts, you voted, whether you've been a self-identified Republican conservative your entire life, you voted Trump that first in 2016, because we have to remember that he ran on an extremely progressive platform. This is a man who stood in the Republican debate when I believe there were still 16 or something Republican candidates.
Right.
At the center of the stage turned to both his left and right and said, all of these men want to, well, no, Carly Fiorina was still there, said all of these candidates want to destroy your Social Security and Medicare. I will save it. And then did everything to destroy it, including suspending the payroll tax and stealing $1.1 trillion from it to give a tax cut to the top 1%. So if you're one of these poor whites, and I'm talking properly poor, I'm talking bottom, below federal poverty level, $10,000, $12,000 a year. But yet, of course, still, just isn't it ironic? You still make too much for Medicaid in your states. So you voted for Trump under those circumstances where you were sold a progressive bill of goods, a near Rooseveltian bill of goods. You had 4 years to watch him do none of the above. Then what did you just vote for?
Well, the fly in that ointment is that you're making an assumption. You're making the assumption that they are following politics to the extent that they know what he did. And I don't think that's true.
Or didn't do.
Right, exactly. So what they're going by is what he says. And he continues to say the right stuff. And by right stuff, what I mean is his connection to those poor folks that you're talking about, his connection to them is that he dislikes the people they dislike. See, a big piece of...
He dislikes them too.
Well, but he doesn't say that, right? So if I come out and if I say on your show, I hate black people, anybody who hates black people is going to love me. I don't have to actually hate black people because all you need is for me to say it, right? You're not going to look up what I do on a daily basis. You're not going to check on me to see if I'm actually secretly hanging out with my family who's all black. All you know is that when I come onto the radio and when I'm on the internet, I'm saying I don't like black people. And so you're good with me because you dislike the people I dislike. You talk the way I talk. You hate all those super smart people over there who always want to tell you what to do. And so, yeah, I'm with that guy. I'm following him because he tells it like it is. That's all he's got to do. He doesn't actually have to follow through with any of it because they're not going to check. These are, and I'm talking about the folks on the right and the left. The average person has never looked up any politician's voting record, has never looked up what's in any legislation that is passed, executive order or otherwise. And so all he has to do is say the right stuff. And he consistently does it. He's actually quite brilliant in that respect. His messaging is always on point. And it's easy to have the right message when the message is, throw around a lot of hate, throw around a lot of doubt about the media, throw around a lot of doubt about the people on the left. That's easy. You could do that all day. And so they're going to listen to him because it's sort of like, imagine you're in the airport and you've just come here from China. And everybody's yelling, but you got people speaking English, you got people speaking Italian, you got people over there speaking Greek, and you got one guy in the middle speaking Mandarin. You're going to listen to the guy who's speaking the language you understand, right? So Donald Trump speaks in their language, and so they like him. And Bill Clinton didn't speak their language, and Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. And now I'm actually not surprised that the election went the way it did this most recent, but I was surprised it was as close as it was, because Joe Biden does actually speak their language a lot of the time. He's very, very simple in the way he communicates. It's very down home, right? Which is a good thing. But I was hoping that in the face of what we're dealing with today, enough people would say, okay, he's sort of like us, but he's at least relatively sane. Because the same cannot be said of Donald Trump. Let me be clear about that, and I am qualified to say it. I was hoping that enough people would say, yeah, but this dude, he's a problem. So let's just try this. At least he's different than those politicians. You know, he talks about beating people up and stuff like that. So he's one of us. I was hoping that's what would happen. And it appears as though on some level it did happen, but I was hoping it would be far less close than it actually was. As the numbers get finalized, it appears as though it's not as close as it seemed that night, but it's still far too close for my comfort. But I believe that that's a function of the fact that our world is so divided right now. I don't care what it is. I'll tell you the honest truth. When I campaigned 2 years ago, my wife and I would go out knocking on doors and people would open the door. Now, I fully expected to have doors slammed in my face and people call me names, you know, race issues, stuff like that. For the very most part, that didn't happen. It did happen, but not a ton. What did happen and what broke my heart more than anything is that more often than not, when I opened the door, people would say, stop. Are you a Democrat or a Republican? And my answer to that question was all they needed. They didn't care about my character. They didn't care about my policy positions. They didn't care about where I went to high school. They didn't care about my values. None of it. Are you on the right side of this? If you are, I'm with you. I don't actually care what you stand for. I want my side to win. And that is a problem. And understand that is as much a problem on the left as it is on the right, unfortunately. You know, I know, you know, listen, I'm relatively liberal, particularly socially. I'm like a flaming liberal when it comes to social issues. But I am just as hard on the left as I am on the right, because the fact of the matter is when I ran for office, a lot of rooms that I was in felt like cult meetings. And I was only in Democrat meeting. I've never been to a Republican meeting. And so I can't sit and point fingers at the Republicans because I've never been to their meetings. You know, I've had a couple of conversations because I think I told you on the phone, Republicans tried to get me to switch and run as a Democrat, as a Republican, which was mind blowing to me. But again, it speaks to, it's not about what your values are anymore. It's about winning and losing in the political world. The politics is not about fixing problems anymore. And so, you know, the people on the left are just as problematic as the people on the right. And when you get, and so, you know, I believe that what has to happen is that we have to throw out the idea of us versus them altogether. We have to throw out the idea of there's that side and this side. In my opinion, it should be against the law for you to tell me what political persuasion you are when you're running, because it changes everything. When a person tells you what party they're coming from or they've registered with, then you bring with that a set of assumptions. And so Donald Trump is a Republican on paper, so people think he's got Republican ideals when he doesn't. And his life history proves that, right? So, you know, I believe that the problem is actually that we've just sort of dug in and said, I'm on my team, you're on your team, and I don't really care what your team does. I want my team to win.
So what overcomes that?
A total culture shift.
Why doesn't education overcome that?
Education would overcome that. The problem is, again, in America, we don't even attempt to truly educate people. You know, education in America is about teaching people how to pass certain tests. That's what it does.
At the risk of falling into exactly what you just explained, one of the first things the Reagan administration did when it took over, and if you have Reagan on your Kennedy Effect bingo card, you may check it off now, is that he installed Bill Bennett as the Secretary of Education. And one of the first things that Bill Bennett did was to end civics education across the country. It is very hard to complain about government or what government is doing or what government is not doing when you do not understand how government works.
Right.
It's also it becomes much more easy for corporate Republicans, neo-fascist Republicans, to tell you how government should work and to pat you on the head and send you into the corner, except for every 2 to 4 years when they want you to vote. And
Right.
they never mind. We'll go ahead, come on out, vote, and then pat you on the head and say, "Good job. We'll get back to you in 2 years.
Right.
We'll take care of everything. Just relax. We got this." When you don't understand how government works. So at the risk of falling into what you just described, one of the running conversations that was happening on Tom Hartman's program this week was him pushing back against the thought that there were a series of callers that were talking about, again, as we all digest and debrief the election that we just went through, this thought that we, especially as he is a progressive host, as am I, we really need to engage and talk to these folks in rural America.
Mm-hmm.
And his very first initial reaction from the very first person that brought that up was, you know what? No, we don't. We need to talk to them, and they need to shut up and listen.
Mm.
We don't need to listen to them because most of what they are saying is crap. It's ill-informed crap because they're regurgitating the crap that they've been fed for 40 plus years, arguably 50 going back into the Nixon administration, to a ever so slightly lesser percent, 40 with Reagan, and to a much greater extent, 30 with the inception of Fox and right-wing hate radio.
Yeah.
We need to talk to them and educate them. I would say re-educate them, but that presumes the fact that they were educated in the first place. And there's a difference between, you and I talked about this too, there's a difference between dumb and stupid. These are not dumb people. Dumb is seeing the red hot burner on the stove and putting your hand on it because you didn't know what it was.
Right.
Stupid is putting your hand on it again.
Right.
Because you didn't learn anything the first time. So these are not dumb people. They might be stupid because they've not learned anything. They're simply doing what they've been told as a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Because, watch out. A brown person's coming for your job.
Right.
Even though your taxes have been taken and sent to the top 1%.
Right.
Not down to the brown person,
Right.
but up to the top 1%. And it's Mr. Hartman's ideal that we don't need to listen to them because they're not saying anything. They're parroting a lot of things, but they're not saying anything. They need to be re-educated or educated from the get. It's the Democratic Party. And by the way, not the Democrat Party, the Democratic Party. It's been the Democratic Party since it was founded, by the way, folks. There is no Democrat Party. It is the Democratic Party. And it's been the Democratic Party since it was founded by Jefferson and Madison. The Democrat Party is a trick developed by Joe McCarthy to make us all sound like rats, of which we are not. We're the Democratic Party. We have Democratic candidates. We have Democratic office holders. We have big D Democratic office holders who were small d democratically elected. We are the party of the New Deal. We are the party of the Great Society. We are the party of the Peace Corps, of the moonshot, We are the party that electrified the country. And I don't just mean made you all excited and tingly. I mean literally delivered electricity to the entire bloody country when corporations refused to do it. Roosevelt did that. We are the country that built dams and post offices and schools and roads and seawalls and sewer systems all over the country, especially into rural areas when corporations wouldn't do it because they couldn't make any money on it. We did that. We brought public education to the entirety of the nation. We did that. We brought the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act and the Great Society that cut poverty in half, Social Security and Medicare. We did that. So at the risk of falling into the group that you just described, and I understand what you just described, I get it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, why doesn't education cure what you just described?
Right. Well, education would, if we were actually educating people. The problem is we're not, right? So the reason I say a culture shift is because education is only a tool for the culture in which it is functioning, right? So I can educate you in any way that I want. Fox News is educating people, whether you like it or not. Fox News is educating people. It is teaching them to think a certain way, right? So by the same token,
is it teaching them to think, or is it teaching them to parrot?
Well, but it doesn't matter. It's teaching them. It's teaching them. If I consistently say something and because I've said it, you think certain things that I wanted you to think, I taught you. Whether, you know, it's semantics talking about what is actually being taught. So in America.
All right. Well, okay. Let me get off the semantics then. Is indoctrination teaching?
Yes. It absolutely is. Unfortunately,
we're equivocating education with indoctrination.
No, see, so indoctrination is on some level education, but education isn't necessarily indoctrination. So in other words, theoretically, education could be used for good, but education could also be used for bad. So what I mean by that is, you know, in America, I'll give you an example. My daughter, now she's 27, so we got to go back a long time to when she was 12 years old. She came home and said that in her social studies class, they taught something that didn't sit right with her. And she showed me in the book, there was a section about the first Americans or the first Africans to come to America. And it said the first Africans to come to America didn't actually have it all that bad. They were indentured servants and they had a relatively good life and they were treated pretty good. And yes, they had different, quarters for them. And sure, we called them slaves, but it wasn't even that bad. Right. That was the gist of what was there. And it made my daughter's stomach hurt. And she said, is that true? And of course I said, that's, the biggest load of, edit, right?
Right. Biggest load of bleep.
Right.
Yeah.
But my point is the average student isn't coming home and asking mom, hold on, is that not true? Is it like, what's up with that line right there? Right. So there were people who were taught. I'll never forget. This is a true story. When I was in high school, I was taught by my civics teacher that Nelson Mandela is famous for no reason, didn't do anything to help anyone, and should not be seen as a hero. I swear to you, this is what I was taught in high school by a teacher that I love to this day. Okay. So that's the education system in America, right? Good, bad, or indifferent. We are being taught, but we are being miseducated on every level. Okay. And so because we are being, as a whole, we are being miseducated. We are not taught our actual history. We're not taught what America did to Native Americans. We are not taught what America did to Asian people at one point in our history. We're not taught the fullness of what America still does to slaves and the descendants of slaves in America. We're not taught any of this stuff. And so our system doesn't cure those ills that you were speaking of, because our education system isn't doing the same kind of teaching that you would need to do in order to cure this problem. Truly informed people would not allow any of this stuff to happen, but America is not a country full of truly informed people.
So then how do we explain a nearly, or what has been reported in more than one locale, as a 20% increase in Black men voting for Trump?
Right.
How do we from my point, let me just punch that mic out of the way.
Right.
Me, that was smooth, wasn't it? From me as a political person, as a political consultant, wonk, show host, for you from a psychological point of view, and I hope you're sitting down for this in case you didn't know it, as a Black man yourself.
Wait, did you say I was Black? I didn't.
I did.
I'm sorry. I didn't.
Were you aware?
I need to call my mother. Hold on.
Hang on. Check with her. Check with her.
Right.
Go back and watch the show on the recording.
I need to see my birth certificate.
You may want to sit down.
Right.
You may want to sit down.
Right.
How do we explain then if white America is not being taught the truth? Black America has experienced and knows the truth and doesn't have to be taught it because you lived it. How do we explain a 20% increase in Black men? Because Black women sure as hell did not.
Right.
We have those metrics. We know that. Black women in large part, if not, well, an extremely large part. In a nation of 330 million people, no one segment of society does anything individually or by themselves. But to a very great extent, Black women delivered this election for President-elect Biden.
Right.
But again, let's be honest, when you're talking about 330 million people and a voting populace of nearly 160 million, no one demographic does anything by themselves.
Right.
But Black women came out for President-elect Biden at nearly, I think, 90%, if I'm not mistaken. Again, I'm working from memory. But Black men did, nearly 20% more Black men voted for Trump in 2020 than in 16. How do we explain that?
Well,
is that simply right-wing hate media, or is it the right-wing hate media narrative of those Mexicans and Central Americans and Hispanics, they're coming for your job? Except that, by the way, Black men, you didn't have jobs anyway.
So I don't actually think that it's that Black men fear losing their job to an immigrant.
Do they like the bully? Do they like the guy that stands up and says, I'm going to beat them all up?
Right. Well, no, I actually don't know that is the case. What I believe, here's what I believe, and I have not studied the demographics of this election, but what I believe is that Black and Hispanic men, Black men, maybe Black men in particular, I don't know, but it's a rough life, right? So oftentimes we live feeling like we've got a target on our back, right? And in a lot of ways, America has a predatory relationship, particularly with Black men. And so it forces one into this sort of every man for himself kind of mentality. And the every man for himself mentality sounds an awful lot like the Republican Party. And so
It was Reagan that said, we are not a society. We are not one nation. We are not a community. We are a group of rugged individualists.
Right.
And he could not have been more wrong, but he had to develop that narrative
Right.
to divide and conquer,
Right.
to make poor people feel that they were disconnected
Right.
from government and from the rest of society. And he also needed to make you then feel disconnected from rich people,
right,
so that they weren't stealing from you. They didn't have, and I'm actually going to say this intentionally, and I know the imagery it's going to invoke, and I'm doing it purposefully. Rich folks didn't have their knee on your neck.
Yeah.
We're all disconnected. We're just individuals. They're just the lucky ones that had all the money.
Right.
We're not one society.
Right.
But here's the truth of it. We are.
Right.
We are one society. Because when the top 1% makes all, I shouldn't say makes, receives all, 100% of all the new wealth created since the year 2000, George W. Bush, over $21 trillion. That's a society, because they took all of the society's wealth.
Right.
And the bottom 99 loses, has extracted from it
right,
nearly $1 trillion. That's a society.
right.
Rugged individuals don't do that. A society does that.
And the problem is, so when I said a cultural shift, that's exactly what I'm talking about. In order to fix this mess, and
it leads to the question I wanted to get to,
okay,
and I will get to, and I'm not trying to cut you off or rush you.
That's okay.
But when does that break come? If you're that poor Southern white, and there's still some of them, by the way, who literally don't have indoor plumbing, can't go to school, no health care, none.
Right.
None. Or even in California, the 5th largest economy on the planet, when $200 million is spent by 2 companies, Uber and Lyft, to make sure that you are not considered to be an actual employee, but an independent contractor, which means you can never unionize.
Right.
You'll never have health benefits, never have overtime. But the unions can barely scrape together 20 million to try to defend you.
Right.
When does the break come? When is the epiphany come? When is the aha moment that says, I keep voting for this crap and all I do is get kicked in the teeth?
Right.
When did that come? Even if we take away, as you mentioned before, even if we take away the labels of it, which I think are inexorable, I don't think you can take away the labels from them.
Okay.
When does it say to me, when do I finally wake? I almost wish I could swear in this book.
Right, but I know what you mean.
When do I wake the hell up and say, I've been voting Republican since Reagan, and all I've done is get screwed? I'm poorer than I was. I pay more taxes than I ever have. And by the way, I don't care what everyone, wherever you fall on the political spectrum, is welcome on this program. I have had Republican guests. You're welcome here. You can call, you can chat, tweet, I don't care. Disagree with me, hate me, argue, whatever you want to do. You're wrong. These are the facts. You pay more taxes now than you did before Reagan took office. In real dollars, as a percentage of your income, period, end of story. You pay more. The corporations are responsible as a percentage of the federal budget, less now in real dollars, an overall percentage, period, end of story, than they were before Reagan. It's a fact. I don't care what you think or say or what Limbaugh tells you. That's a fact. There are no other sets of facts. They're facts. The earth is round. It's a fact. If the minimum wage kept pace with worker productivity, it's $7.25 in the Commonwealth still now. It should be $23. Yeah. If it kept pace with CEO pay, it should be $35.
Right.
These are facts. So, doctor,
right,
as a human being who's been voting against my own self-interest for 40 years or 50 years, or at least 20 years since George W. Bush, when does the aha moment come? When do I wake the hell up and say, wait a minute, I can't keep my house. I can't afford kids. The hell with whether I want to have them or even actually have them. I couldn't afford it. I can't see a doctor. I'm on food stamps. College is a unicorn.
Right.
So when do I snap out of it? When does that happen?
Well, here's the problem. The problem is, the short answer is it doesn't. The aha moment doesn't come. And here's why. Culturally, America has developed in such a way that we actually value the wrong stuff. And because we value the wrong stuff, it would be highly unlikely for a person at the bottom of the system to have an aha moment and fundamentally shift their behavior, because there's no reason for them to see anything in this situation that would encourage them to think anything different. And what I mean by that is, in America, because of unrestricted capitalism, we value wealth. And because of our weird social media driven world, we now also value fame. So I would argue that the two most powerful drives in America right now are wealth and fame. Okay. And so you have a system where theoretically anyone can become wildly successful at any given moment. And you see examples of it all the time. You know, you see that Kobe Bryant grew up, let's take LeBron James, grew up inner city, Ohio, didn't have much, now wildly successful, super wealthy. Everyone will say, see, that's the American dream. As long as the idea is that it's possible for me to become one of the ultra wealthy, I'm not actually going to attack them, because what I want is to be with them, right? And so it's not going to all of a sudden be that people wake up and recognize I'm never going to make that jump. Because in order to do that, you would have to recognize that you'd been wasting your energy for the last 30 years. And that's too much cognitive dissonance. That would hurt too bad. It would require
wasting your energy, or is it finally the realization that the system is rigged against you, and no matter how much energy you expend, you're never moving ahead?
Right. Well, sure. But either way, it's a realization that, oh crap, this would never work. The chances of it working are so ridiculously slim that it's a silly idea, right? For most people, particularly people who are born below, let's say there's a median, right? The median in America right now is like 56 grand a year, something like that. If you're born below that median, the chances of you ever being above that median are like ridiculously low. Okay. So it just doesn't happen very often that you go from the bottom to the top. That just doesn't happen. We know of the examples that happen, because when it does happen, it's so amazing, right?
And by the way, of the so-called first world countries. Why we're even considered in that tier any longer is almost a mystery to me. We are not, in my humble opinion. This is not a first world nation anymore, but we're still considered that. Of the so-called first world industrialized Western first world nations, economies, we are dead last in social mobility.
Yeah.
There is no other country
And
where you have less of a chance.
that's right.
This is neo-feudalism here in the country. If you are born poor, your chances of dying poor are excellent.
It's a lock, right?
It's damn near a lock. Your chances of moving ahead, even from poor into the working lower middle class, are damn near nil.
Right. And so anyone who wants to understand this a little better, check out a book called Dream Hoarders. Richard Reeves wrote a book that I really like, Dream Hoarders. It talks about this very fact. It talks about the idea that the American, this guy is actually from the UK, and he wrote in this book that America's caste system is actually far more strict than the old system that we left, right? And it talks about the disproportionate advantage of being upper middle class. But the problem in America today is that, in theory, America is built on this American dream. The American dream is the rags to riches story. That's literally the American dream. That's what it's all about. The fact that you could theoretically go from being poor to being wealthy by just doing the certain stuff. Like, I'm going to work real hard and I'm going to get, it doesn't work that way. And the people who study this know it doesn't work that way. But selling that idea allows them to continue to extract wealth from the people at the bottom by just saying, yeah, but if you keep on working really hard, you could be one of us extracting wealth too. And so everyone's like, well, then, I don't want to get rid of that, wealthy elite class. I just want to join them. And so the folks, you talked about the black voters that went Republican. What you'll find is that a lot of those black voters who like Trump are the black voters who believe they're right there, or maybe they're even there. Maybe they're super wealthy and they want to keep their wealth, because again, that's part of the problem in America, is particularly for black and brown people. If you've made it, you're holding on by a thread, right? Your wealth is held together with duct tape and chicken wire. And so you're going to vote for the people who you believe give an advantage to wealth because you want to keep your wealth. When I start talking about my ultra liberal idea of what the society should look like, people are like, what are you talking about? That's, and they'll start talking about socialism and everything else. And it's because people want to be able to be rich if they want to. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The problem is the idea itself is incomplete. See, I've actually put a lot of thought into this because I've, believe it or not, I've sat up at night thinking, how the heck could you fix this problem? And what I've come up with is that you would actually have to fundamentally shift American culture such that we no longer aspire to be wildly wealthy. Okay. And if you could theoretically do that, you could make it so that, for example, the Jeff Bezoses of the world, it's not illegal. It's just frowned upon, because why would anybody do that? Like, oh, you're a billionaire. Oh, geez. Like, oh man, that's what we would need. We would need for people to recognize that level of wealth for what it actually is, because that level of wealth.
Obscene?
Say again.
Obscene?
Yes, because it's sort of like this. That level of wealth.
He's different. I believe he's actually earned his status. He's created a company and a business that was fundamentally new and different.
Right.
Same for Steve Jobs.
Sure.
Created
something that the world needed, and
he
it
created technology that
go for it. God
beyond
bless
that, though. It's beyond that. He created technology we did not even know we needed or wanted.
Right.
Where it's different is that he does not get to use that money to rig the system against everyone else. That's where you cross the threshold. And by the way, some of the richest people on the planet, the richest families, and the largest corporations that continue to function on the planet were created post 1932.
Yeah.
People got rich.
Right.
And most people, look, I'd like to win one of the huge lotteries myself. It would not bother me to be uber wealthy. It just wouldn't bother me. But beyond that, I'd rather just be comfortable.
Right.
When 40% of the population cannot absorb a $400 emergency and 60% can't absorb a $1,000 emergency, something's wrong.
Right. And
something
so
fundamentally wrong with that.
Here's the problem.
That's what we're talking about. There were a lot of rich folks created after the New Deal.
Yeah.
And they were taxed at 91% above a certain dollar amount of income. Not $0, 91%, but only after a certain dollar amount of income. That's what we're talking about. So, and by the way, don't let right wing lie to you folks. However, whoever many thousands of you are listening right now, or tens of thousands, or hopefully millions of you are listening right now, don't let yourself be lied to. That top tax rate, which is only, by the way, 38.5% now, only applies after a certain amount of income, not from your first dollar, only after about $4 million now. And it should be 90%, by the way.
I'll push back. Here's why. I don't believe that it's reasonable that we will ever get people in America today, not today, to agree to any to even that a 90%, 80% tax on exorbitant wealth. People won't buy it, not yet. But what I would argue is that we need a fundamental shift in the values of the average American, because what I was going to say is that exorbitant wealth needs to be seen in the context that it's actually sitting in. And what I mean is, imagine you go to a buffet, okay? You're at that buffet and you're allowed to eat as much food as you can eat. You're allowed to pick up whatever you can pick up, put it on your plate. If you can carry it, you could take it to your table and you can eat it, right? That is based on the fundamental assumption that no one would actually take that much more than they need, right? That's the only reason you can have an all-you-can-eat buffet. Is it's based on the idea that people are reasonable, and no one would literally get a garbage bag, just shovel the food off of the buffet into their bag and go home with it, right? So that the next customer that comes in pays their $10 and there's like a couple of carrots and some of that like rice pudding that nobody likes, right? Like, it's understood, it's assumed that people wouldn't do that. And that is the only reason an all-you-can-eat buffet can exist, because the owner knows that most people are going to eat their fill and then they're going to go home. And their fill is not a lot of food, right? But with money, with unrestricted capitalism, what you have is people walking in, and because they can, they literally hook up the buffet to their flatbed, drive away with the food, and say, "Kiss off, suckers. You're on your own. They told me I could take whatever I want." And so you've got, I agree with you, Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, any of them, Oprah Winfrey. You're allowed to make however much money you want to make in America. There's nothing to stop you from that. And I don't begrudge you your wealth. Here's the problem. The problem is that we live in a world that says it's okay for a person to have more money than they could ever spend in 10 lifetimes and enough money to give everyone blood related to them millions of dollars in perpetuity, while at the same time walking past people who don't have food. I mean, think about that. If you did that, if you saw that story play out among 5-year-olds at a playground, you'd yell at the billionaire. Like, what's wrong with you? Why do you have all the toys and the other kids don't have any toys? Did I really raise you that way? Like, you're not a kind person. Share that. Give little Johnny that toy, because why would you need 17 toys? That's ridiculous. A good parent would, at the very least, give that kid a spanking. And if it was my mom, at the very least, you'd talk to him. My mom would spank me. If she comes to the playground and I've got literally all the toys and all the other kids are crying, like, why does Ruben have all the toys? I would get a spanking. But yet Jeff Bezos has it literally. This is where this idea came from. When I thought about this, because what's his name? Bloomberg, the guy who was like, for a hot minute, he was running for president. He challenged Trump for like a half a minute. And I saw some newscast that said Bloomberg is so rich that he could send everybody in America $1 million and he'd still have a bunch of money left over. And my first thought whenever I heard that was, then why hasn't he done it already? Like, if you actually had enough money to literally end poverty and you haven't done it, then you're just a jerk, right? And our culture has morphed into one in which we don't recognize that for what it is. We don't recognize billionaires as simply crappy people for being so greedy, right? If I went to Walmart every week and grabbed all the food off the shelves and took it home and just built a bunker in my backyard and stored all the food, you'd be like, you're a jerk, because nobody else has food now because you bought all the food, right? But we do it with money all the time. And that our problem, our fundamental problem in America will not change until our culture changes, because right now the culture works for the idea of ultra wealth. And so anyone who aspires to that is going to say, no, don't break the system, make it a little bit more fair so that I maybe have a better shot, but don't break the system. But the problem is that the system itself is problematic. The system itself is, if you want to and you figure out how to crack the code, you can be ultra wealthy, which is, first of all, a lie. The average person does not have an opportunity to be ultra wealthy. Mm-hmm. It's just simply not true. It's like ridiculous, the chances of ever getting to that. But you asked the question. Your question is,
and it's funny though that you would make that comparison, because I have made that comparison with billionaires and food.
It's the truth.
100 times. Because if Americans were to think about the ungodly wealth disparity that we have in this country, right, if we were to think about that wealth in terms of food, it would be the second French Revolution.
Right.
The guillotines.
Right. It'd be easy. It would be simple. If you stopped calling it money and started calling it ability to buy food, right? There's somebody out there with zero ability to buy food, and there's somebody out there with infinite ability to buy food. And so then the idea becomes, okay, so then why doesn't the
food, or the actual food itself, literally the actual food itself, you can't eat.
Right. Exactly.
But they have enough food in there that it's,
and think about
they couldn't eat all of it in 10 lifetimes.
Think about it. Oprah Winfrey, who I love and on a lot of levels aspire to. There's no way on earth she can navigate her city without driving past homeless people. Now, how are you going to be, how can a billionaire drive past a homeless person, and when you get past, the person is still homeless? To me, that makes no sense, right? Because, I consider myself a relatively kind person. I can be a jerk at times, but I would like to believe that I was raised proper. if I have $1 billion and you have none, as soon as we meet, you no longer have none. Simply because what else am I doing with it? Like what are you doing with it? You're gonna hold it all until you die? Like that doesn't, like that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. And that's what people do in America. It's like, I'm gonna get as much money as possible. I'm gonna stack it up and put it away somewhere. And then when I die, I'll give it to like my kids. It's like 3 people. And then when they die, they can give it to my grandkids. But that's it. Like that's really literally the system in America. And people think it makes sense when there are people who don't eat on a daily basis, people who don't have homes. And so what I would want to see, and understand that what I'm talking about wouldn't actually impact the average person, right? So my opinion, you make 200-300 grand a year, God bless you, go have some fun, right? If you make millions of dollars in a year consistently, why are you not helping with people? Like at some point you have enough money. Like once you've bought all your stuff and you bought a couple of like super nice cars and you got a couple of guest houses and blah, blah, blah. At some point, at least in my opinion, it taps out in the same way that the food at the smorgasbord taps out. At some point, you look like a jerk getting more stuff. And so at some point you say, all of my earning capacity from this point on should go to the greater good. I don't actually believe that it's in a perfect world, and it's not a perfect world. So I recognize that, but it shouldn't have to be that you legislate that. You shouldn't tell people how much of their money to give away. And it actually shouldn't go, I don't believe, to the government, which tends to historically only hurt us and manipulate us. What should actually happen, in my opinion, is that people should recognize that they are hoarding resources. It's not money, it's resources. You're hoarding resources. And so in order for you to be ultra wealthy, that dude that you walked by, he has to be poor in order for you to be that wealthy. And so I don't want to be that wealthy because I want that guy to not be poor. Right. So now I'll help him. I'll help him get on his feet. And now he's a little bit less poor. Yes, I'm a little bit less wealthy, but like, so what? I mean, once you get past a certain number of million, who cares? Like Jeff Bezos, do you really need that much? In my opinion, that's the problem. In my opinion, our culture is flawed and we value wealth, and what we should value is each other. In my opinion, we should value each other because that's the cool part about our world.
Community.
Yeah, the community. That's right. You hit on it. We are a society. We are a community, and you are absolutely right. And whether people recognize it or not, whether people understand it or not, we are all in this together. You don't have to believe me on that. You don't have to agree with me. It's still true. We're all in this together, right? Because if you are hurting, it impacts me whether you like it, whether I like it or not, right? Because you being broke means that now you might go rob the liquor store or go rob the Walmart or go rob now it's less safe for me because you're hungry. If I simply made it so that you weren't hungry, I would be safer.
That's exactly where Elizabeth Warren's wealth tax comes in for me. If you 50 million of wealth, you pay. Anything under, you don't.
Yeah, and it's so simple. It's like, listen, first of all, most of the people getting up in arms about that will never be impacted by it.
Which was exactly her point.
Right. And then on top of that, what are you doing with all that money anyway? Who cares? And so, you know, that's a hard sell. And particularly it's a hard sell when you want to say that someone somewhere gets to mandate it. And that's why I say I don't actually believe it should be legislated. I believe that a culture shift would be required. And in order to have that culture shift, what would have to happen is very ultra wealthy people would have to suddenly decide to simply live differently. And seeing it in action would inspire people to maybe realize, wait a minute, you know what? Once I got past like, you know, say 20 million, I really didn't need any more money than that. So I just started like, you know, helping people with it. And I still live the same life I live, so who cares? I think people would see, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, we were just kind of being jerks before. But I don't think it would work until that shift. Like if Oprah decided today, you know what I'm gonna do? Me and Bill Gates are gonna get together and we're gonna like give away all our money. We're gonna keep 100 million for ourselves, but then we're gonna give away the rest, and we're just gonna like end poverty. Like that's it. There's no more poverty in America. We just decided because they could. It would change everything, because then all of a sudden you'd see it and you'd know, oh, it could be done. There's nothing wrong with being kind to each other. It's not dog eat dog. It's not like every man for himself. It's like, think about it in terms of your house. I have children. Like when I wake up in the morning, I don't say, okay, Ella, it's on you now. Like if you want to get some food, you better find some. No, like we take care of it because that's what you do. And I believe that that's what has to happen in America. We have to begin to value each other, and value wealth less. And then suddenly you don't need to tell people to be kind and helpful and feed the poor and end homelessness and stuff like that, because it would be intuitive. It would be understood that, like, what I would wish for in my utopian society, billionaire status would be embarrassing. You wouldn't want to tell your friends that you were a billionaire. You'd be like, oh, it'd be like, I don't know the equivalent of what, like something that you would never tell somebody that you have, right? I would never want somebody to know I have $1 billion, because how much of a jerk does that make me look like? That's my utopia, is where you'd realize, now, once you get past a certain amount, let me just help somebody, because what else am I doing with it? That's what I would hope for.
And the U.S. has created 4 new billionaires just since the onset of the pandemic.
Well, good for those folks, I suppose. I mean, that's sad, but I mean, that's America.
So while most of the businesses in this country were asked to close, stay-at-home guidelines and so on to try to prevent the spread of the pandemic, we created 4 new billionaires. And Jeff Bezos eclipsed $200 billion in personal wealth.
And now see, that's an example right there.
More than most of the GDP, higher than the GDPs of 3/4 of the nations on Earth.
Yeah. So if you think about that, 1 billion is too much money, but he has hundreds of billions of dollars. So like, he could end poverty in America. He could end homelessness in America and not miss it.
And still have some left over.
And still have money left over.
He reached that 200 billion only, I think, 6 months after the divorce settlement, where he gave nearly a third or 40% of his wealth to his ex-wife.
So in my opinion, the problem in America is that that doesn't make enough people's stomach hurt. Because that's what it should.
People have as much wealth as the bottom 160 million.
Right. And in America, those people are revered rather than stoned to death. Because the fact of the matter is, if you have $1 billion and there's anybody within a 20-mile radius of you struggling, you're a jerk. Period. It's as simple as that, in my opinion. Now, I mean, nobody's asking me my opinion except you, but like, in my opinion, it just doesn't make any sense. And so until we change that, until young Americans, until the American dream is everyone being okay, this won't change. It's as simple as that. The American dream is I can become wealthy. The American dream actually should be we can be okay.
Nearing the bottom of the hour of our 3rd hour, believe it or not, already. Yes. 7:30 Eastern time in the United States. That other side of information is the homepage for all things The Kennedy Effect, but wherever you may be watching on Facebook, watching live or watching the recorded version, thank you for being here. Hot101.net family, thank you for being there. The main website, the Apple app, the Google Play Store, Android app, and the TuneIn Radio app. thatotherkennedy@gmail.com for advertising with the program or comments, questions, yelling, show suggestions, guest suggestions.
Right.
Tweet us at That Kennedy Talk, and the live chat continues on Facebook. I do want to ask you, I did want to ask you about something that we did not have time to discuss on the phone, but another question popped into my head. The evangelical movement, the self-identified evangelicals, the uber Christians, the holier than thou, dare I say.
Right.
Yet at the same time, well, I should say the evangelicals just see nothing wrong with this wealth and this high concentration of wealth. And I guess, but at the same time, when we look to scripture, it's, it is Jesus that overturned the tables of the money changers in the temple. It is it is easier to pass a camel through the eye of a needle than for the rich to go to heaven. It is, Lord, how do we enter heaven? As you do unto the least of me, you do unto me. But yet it is the evangelicals who seem to consider, they seem to have adopted this Hobbes mentality of the wealth doctrine, or the prosperity doctrine, that obviously it is the wealthy who are supposed to lead because that is the wealthy that God has blessed, because that he has blessed them through wealth.
Right.
What is there a psychological component to a human being? And if you don't want to just pick on the evangelicals, that's fine too. Is there a psychological component to a human being that disallows them from seeing stark hypocrisy staring them straight in the face?
Yes. Yeah, that's an easy one.
Is it sheer denial, or is there something more complex?
No, it really is that simple.
Just denial.
Yeah, because it is in your human nature. It is hardwired into your brain to protect you from the discomfort of those ideas you just spoke of. So people are wired in such a way that they want to seek pleasure and avoid pain, right? And so that leads to wanting, particularly in a society like this, wanting to be wealthy. It's wired into us. It's why it happens so often. And so the idea that, so like Jesus said to do this, which is counterintuitive if my goal is wealth, that creates cognitive dissonance, because on the one hand, I'm saying I'm a Christian, but on the other hand, I do want this whole wealth, fame thing. So I'm just going to kind of push that off to the side. I'm not going to worry about the fact that Jesus probably wouldn't agree with me on this whole wealth thing, because he's not here to argue with me. So it's totally fine. It's not that big of a deal. It's not that much of a discrepancy. You tell yourself this and you shut it off. Right. And so that's what defense mechanisms are. It's your mind altering reality such that it feels comfortable for you. And so I don't think it's difficult at all for people to say they are evangelical and to say they're all about the principles of Jesus Christ and Christianity and all those things, and yet live in a way that is fundamentally opposite to that. It's not difficult at all. You see it happening all the time. So that's the evidence, right? The problem is people aren't self-reflective. People aren't looking at their own behaviors and actions and thoughts and saying, wait a minute, this doesn't add up. People don't do that. Again, we don't aspire to be intellectuals anymore. We don't aspire to be fundamentally good people. You know, think about it. If Jesus came to earth today, and let's say Jesus came to earth and he wanted to get his message out today, what would he do? Well, he'd start a YouTube channel, because that's how you get a message out today. He'd get on social media. Let's say it catches like wildfire and he makes $1 billion in short order. Now Jesus is down here on earth. He's got $1 billion. What do you believe Jesus would do with that $1 billion? Would he buy a bunch of land, get him a couple of cars and a few houses and you know, an airplane, and like lived a good life popping champagne bottles? Probably not. He would probably feed the poor, end homelessness, give to others, love people, be kind, give freely of his abundance, right? That's what he would do. But if he did that today in America, he would be ostracized for it, because our culture doesn't call for that, right? So it's actually much easier. You know, when I have these conversations and I talk about, and I've done it a few times, but when I talk about these ideas, I always get nervous because I know there will be pushback and people will say, hey man, that guy's talking about some crazy stuff. And it's because these ideas are completely outside of the realm of normal and reasonable in American culture. And so, you know, it's not all that difficult for an evangelical to like put aside the teachings of Christ right now, because the teachings of Christ are not the way the average person lives. And so it doesn't feel that discrepant. You know, it's like, yeah, but giving away all my money, that'd be unreasonable. But that is literally what Jesus would do. Right. So like, it's so easy to do because there's no one in America or even in the world right now, in most cultures, in any Western society, there's no one saying, you know what, you probably shouldn't be so greedy. That's just not a thing. It's not a thing that we do, right? Because we aspire to wealth. And so as long as we aspire to wealth, it's going to be really easy for people to quiet that voice saying, maybe we should like actually do the Jesus stuff, right? Because that's not popular right now. So you know, I think it's a lot easier than you might think.
Folks, I want to warn you. If I disappear suddenly, we are having one whale of a storm right now.
Yeah.
I just saw the lights flicker.
Yeah. It was actually here not too long ago, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
When we started, the wind was blowing ferociously outside my window.
For those of you watching live, I don't know if you've heard it whopping against the windows here.
Right.
I just saw the studio lights flicker. If everything goes, that's what happened.
Why?
That will be the end of the program, I assure you. But so just if you're watching live and everything disappears, I will prematurely say goodnight to you. Please don't stop watching. Right. Don't disappear on us. That was a close one.
Yeah.
We may disappear on you.
Right.
Because we are really
it's getting bad.
Bombed right now.
Yeah.
With one heck of a storm. I'm simply warning you folks, if you're watching live, and to our friends at Hot 101, if I disappear, we're just getting one whale of a storm. And of course to Dr. Brock as well. He may be right in the middle of a sentence and I'll be gone. Right. So if you're watching live, hang in there with us. I'm not ending. I don't plan to end, but Mother Nature may have a different plan for me. So just hang in there, hang with us. But if your screens go black, or if you're on Facebook and you get that message that my video has been interrupted or ended, it will be for that reason. That was a weird one. Yeah, we just had a little snap and a little interruption there that hopefully bulbs don't blow up on me. I have some studio lighting here. We don't have something weird happen. But yeah, we're getting a heck of a storm right now.
Okay. And by the way, I want to say, as you and I talked a couple of days ago, I kind of slated for like a 2-hour slot.
Right,
And here,
we're past. So if you need to
we
go,
blew past that. But
yeah, we did.
but it's been a fun conversation. So I didn't want to leave prematurely. But my wife is tending to a 15-month-old by herself downstairs. So she's like, okay,
I want to see if I can just grab one last question out of you. I know you want to go. I know you have to go. I respect that tremendously. I did want to ask you though one last question.
Okay.
And this is something we didn't get a chance to talk about on the phone. So I mean, I'm kind of hitting this out of the
I like curveballs, so it's okay.
I had the distinct honor to work with many candidates across the Commonwealth in this last cycle, and many of them were first-time candidates. Both for Congress, state Senate, state House, all across the board in rural areas, one in Monroe, and just all over the place.
Okay.
And I just wanted to. They invested everything, and you've been there yourself.
Yes.
So you have some familiarity with the process, and they're having an extreme, dare I say, extremely difficult time dealing with the loss.
Yeah.
The energy, the time,
right,
the effort, the time away from family, the financial investment, the campaigning, the 16 and 20-hour days, the travel, the investment of a campaign, even in this COVID era, when you can't knock the 10,000 door and so on.
Yeah. Yep.
And the times during a campaign where you start to get that sense that like, oh, we can do this. We're going to do this.
Yeah.
We got this.
Right.
And then election night comes, and even as slow as the count went in the Commonwealth, and just you kind of get your bum handed to you.
Yep.
And you think to yourself, but we worked so hard.
Right.
But all those people said they were going to support us. But it went so well. But 10,000 people liked our Facebook page. But what do you say to someone like that? I mean, there's some folks who are having, proper, serious, emotional, mentally difficult times dealing with that stress. What do you say to folks like that, especially the first timers? I mean, there's even some second and third timers who are having a difficult time with it, but what do you say to the first timers, especially who are just like, but I don't get it, but it went so well, and so many people said they loved us, and I don't understand what happened.
Yeah. So that's a good question. And my answer is, remember why you ran in the first place, and then get back in the game. And what I mean by that is, so I ran for office literally because I chew on these problems that we've been talking about for the last 3 hours. I chew on them daily. It is what drives me. I want to make the world better, right? That might be naive, that might be silly, but that's what I want to do. I want to make the world better. Like, I've had rough times. I've come out of them. I'm now doing well. I want more people to be doing well. That is what drove me into politics. Okay. I ran for office. I got a beating, right? I got beat. I'm one of those people. I took a shellacking on election day during the primary in 2018. And the only thing that made it so I didn't sulk for a year is recognizing why I did it and recognizing that holding an elected office is not the only way to do what I meant to do. Because what I meant to do was fix problems, help people, do good in the world, right? And I would argue that it's actually more difficult to do good in the world as a politician than as a non-politician, okay? And so after I got beat, and I've actually technically been beaten twice because I quasi ran. I attempted to vie for the Democratic nomination in the congressional that Connor Lamb eventually won. The first race that he actually won, I actually sought that nomination. And so we all went out and campaigned, him, Pam Ivino, myself, Gina Sorelli, who's the commissioner of Westmoreland County, and others. And Congressman Lamb eventually won. And in that particular race, I knew by the time the vote came, I knew that I shouldn't have won, right? So that one was easy. It was like, okay, I have no business winning this race. However, I ran for state rep, and that was a race I should have won. And I firmly believe I should have won. And had I understood how politics works, I think I would have done it differently, or maybe just not run. Because what I learned is that you need certain things in order to win a race. You need certain things to be in place in order to win an election. And if you don't have those things in place, I don't care how good you are, you're not going to win, right? And so understanding that I didn't have those things in place, I now understand why I lost. And it was difficult for me to continue to kick myself when I realized, oh, you simply didn't have the stuff you needed. It's just that simple. Like, if you don't have the ability to go out and knock on doors every day, all day, then enough people won't know you because you don't have the money to put yourself on TV and blah, blah, blah. So you either got to have one or the other. You got to have time to go knock on the doors yourself, or you got to have the money to put yourself on TV so that people know about you. I didn't have either, and so I lost. It's that simple. However, when I recognized that losing that election didn't mean stop helping people, it didn't upset me anymore, right? Because running that race made me relatively popular. And I used that popularity to start a web show. That's where House Call with Dr. Rueben Brock came from. It literally came out of my desire to use the popularity that I had gained in politics to create a vehicle for me pushing the messages that I tend to push, which is love people, help people, be kind, be understanding about people's afflictions and issues, right? So I'm pushing my agenda and people listen. So now today, more people actually listen to me than I think would be listening to me if I was a state rep in Pennsylvania, because I can say things as a loudmouth, professor that I couldn't say as an elected official. So I actually believe me recognizing what I wanted to do made me feel better, because then I was like, oh, wait, I could theoretically say all this stuff and push for change and not have to follow the conventional wisdom of the Democratic Party, which I never got along with in the first place, right? So I think if you recognize why you're in it, you'll recognize that losing isn't necessarily the end. Now, for some people, if your dream is to be a state senator and you lose, then okay, well then that just sucks, right? But if your dream is simply to be a state senator, you're probably doing it for the wrong reasons. And so if your desire really is to help, then there's more than one way to help. And so then pick yourself up and get out there and start helping. And so that's the thing that keeps me going, is recognizing that if I were a state rep, I probably wouldn't have time to do this show. I certainly wouldn't have time to give 3 hours, right? Because they're just wildly busy, right? And so, I'm not upset. Do I wish I'd have won? Yeah, I think I do. But I think I've accomplished more in the last 3 years having lost, actually, than most people who won would have accomplished. So I think it's just a matter of recognizing that sometimes the system works the way it works and you're not gonna overcome that. So if you are not wealthy, if you are not, in a political circle, if you are not politically connected, it's going to be very difficult for you to win. And so understand that for some, it might be a long shot to win, and you have to find another way to do what you mean to do.
Fair enough. Why don't we leave it there and let you get back to your family?
Yeah.
Have I taken yet? I've taken more than enough time from you. Because again, you joined me early, as most people know. We break the fourth wall here on this show quite a lot with the audience. That Dr. Brock was here with me from a little bit after 4:30, so it's been more, well over 3.5 hours that he's been because he was with me before we joined you live on the air. So he's been with me for a very long time. And unfortunately, I made him talk the whole time. We didn't get a chance to make him break into song. I was threatening to make him break into song because he's got the guitar and the keyboard there. We can't see that here on the screen.
But it's right here. Yeah.
The keyboard there, too. I threatened to make him break into song. So we'll do that on another visit. I'll make him break into song.
Absolutely. And I enjoyed it. So it didn't, you were right. It didn't feel like forever. It felt like a conversation. So I appreciate that. And if I may, I would just like to encourage people, if you like the way I see the world, check out the stuff that I'm doing.
Well, you beat me to it. I was going to say the floor is, if there are any, I want to end the program. I want to end my time with you the way I end it with every guest. And that is to tell you this. This is, I am honored that you were here. I am grateful beyond words that you would take this amount of time to be with me. And I am grateful and honored for what I consider to be a brand new and burgeoning friendship. My brother, I'm honored. I truly honored. And it is my hope that when we are allowed to, do these personal, meetings and things again, because you and I are not close to each other. You only Pennsylvania may not look like the biggest state when you look at it on a map, but drive it. You'll see how big it is.
Yes.
Perhaps when we
when the world opens up again,
when Democratic state committee meetings start happening again in person, I hope that you will be able to come and that we can say hello. And share perhaps even an adult beverage in person or dinner or something. Guests on this program, it is my fervent hope, my deep, heartfelt hope that this is not a one-time deal. This door is open to you, and I hope that you will walk through it again. One of the other hats I wear is the chief strategist for Our Revolution Pennsylvania. I hope you will come visit us there.
I would love that.
Well, and so there is that. So again, I'm grateful. I hope that you will come and visit us again. I hope you'll visit us at Our Revolution some night as well. But then I want to just open the floor to you to say, if there are any points that you wanted to make that we perhaps may have missed, or something that perhaps an answer or a point or something that you were elaborating on that maybe I cut you off that you didn't get to finish. And then also, of course, where can everyone find you, contact you? Where do they find your programs and so on? The floor is completely yours. Take it. It's all yours. Any of the following.
So first and foremost, I hope that people will check out my two, my most recent passion. So I'm getting into YouTube and I'm really having a good time learning how YouTube works and attempting to create something that is entertaining and helpful for people. So I've got two channels, one House Call with Dr. Rueben Brock, where we talk, it's conversations, not necessarily as long as these, but kind of poignant conversations with interesting people who have interesting stories to tell. And so I talk about lifestyle issues. I talk about clinical issues on House Call. But also a very, very kind of personal project for me is my parenting vlog, Fatherhood on the Back Nine. So it's all about the experience of learning to be a dad again. Like I said, I've got a 27-year-old. So I've been a parent for a very long time.
but I've got a 15-month-old, and it's just completely and fundamentally different this time around. And so I'm documenting that and talking about how different it is. And I believe that people will be entertained by those insights, but also my baby's really, really cute. So if you go on there, check out baby Ella, you'll trust me. I'm telling you, you'll be like, everybody thinks their baby's cute.
She is.
Listen, it's
She
like,
is.
people are like, holy cow, that's a cute baby. So go check that out. Fatherhood on the Back Nine. And then if you just want to hear more about me, if you want to know a little bit more of my story, I actually have a book that's out. It's been out for a very long time, so it's not like a new book. But if you look up Rueben Brock on Amazon, you can actually find my book. It's called A Young Man's Wisdom. It's all about my experience of growing up without my father, and then eventually becoming a father, and all of the insights that I needed to come to in order to be what I believe is a good father. And so it's all about my relationship with my mother. It's all about my relationship with my children. And it's all about the messages that the world sends to young men about what it means to be a man. So if you think my perspective is interesting, you could check out any one of those things and get more of that. But if you literally want to interface with me, the best way is Facebook. I'm very, very active on Facebook. And so if you just look up Rueben Brock on Facebook, or look up House Call with Dr. Rueben Brock on Facebook, either one of those, you'll actually catch me. So feel free. I am not that unapproachable kind of guy. I want people to be able to really, truly talk to me. I get inbox messages constantly, and I try my best to answer all of them myself. So check me out anywhere. But I would also say, and you'll understand this because you're a content creator, it is really, really easy to support content creators right now, because all you have to do is watch or listen. And because of the way the system works, the advertisers are the ones that pay for it. So all you've got to do is follow us. All you've got to do is watch, share the videos, and you can be supporting the people that you are putting the right ideas into the world. So I just, if you like what I'm doing, just even if you go and hit subscribe to both my channels and never watch anything, you're still helping us, because that's the way it works, oddly enough. And so my weird and maybe even silly dream is that I would get to be the guy that is doing what I said 15 minutes ago. If I go make $1 billion, I promise you I'm giving it all away. So support people who say the stuff you want to hear, said. And so I'm hoping that if you say, hey, this guy's got a point, then help me out, go buy a book, or, watch 17 videos, whatever way you want to support, it would truly be appreciated.
I'd say the same thing every week. Follow the Twitter, hit a subscribe on YouTube, send us a comment when the program's on, call the program, which no one does. There's still, I can't believe nobody calls this program. I swear to God in heaven. I don't know how Tom Hartman did it 15 years ago. I don't know if he just turned the mic on and people just started ringing. I have no idea how it went, but no, I can't believe nobody calls this program.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Nobody ever calls.
No one calls this program.
I'm going to call in next week. I'm going to call in. I'm going to bring the train.
It is more frustrating. I can't tell you.
I believe it.
And I know that we're talking about things, not just you and I, but all the way back to the beginning. I know I'm ticking people off, and I know they have questions. I know it. Even the people that agree, I know, have stuff to say, and nobody will pick up that bloody phone.
Yeah,
it's
interesting. That is interesting.
It properly gets my knickers in a twist. I got to be honest. It makes me mental. Nobody has. It does make me nuts. It does make me nuts. It is the next growth in this program.
Yeah.
There's no question.
Yeah.
I would be able to do the program more days a week. I know I would get more advertisers if people were calling. It would make it a proper, regular, progressive talk. I would be
right.
Make me,
people were calling it.
Make me a Hartman, Rhodes, Miller type program if people were just calling. I wouldn't have to chain you to a desk for 4 hours if I had. I would get two. You could call on a Wednesday and I could do 10 minutes and then you could run and go back to your life. And then that'd be the end of it. And I'd have time for oh God, it's frustrating.
No, I get it.
Bloody hell, is it frustrating? I don't know what to say. Makes me mental. Anyway, Dr. Brock,
Yes.
I'm so, like I said, I'm immensely grateful. I'm humbled and immensely grateful that you could be here, for, not just for this amount of time, but I mean, well, a lot for this amount of time, but just that you would do it in the first place, that you would do it at all in the first place.
I love it.
Very,
I
very
think
humble.
you're doing cool stuff. So I'm happy to be here.
And I hope that you will come and visit us again and not be strangers to the program.
Absolutely.
And, that you will come and visit us at our Revolution some night. And to you and the family, beyond everything that we've shared here tonight, please stay healthy. We know the cases cases are out of control, not just in the Commonwealth, but across the country. Please stay healthy. Watch out for that wonderful young lady.
Yes.
And, to you and the entire family, please stay healthy. Please, just watch out for yourselves and come and see us again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good conversation. All right.
Thank you.
See you soon.
All right, folks, that's Dr. Rueben Brock. Check out everything that he does. I mean, it is it's such a millennial kind of term, content creator, but that is really what we're doing. I mean, we are creating content. It's funny. I've never thought of it that way. I really haven't thought of it that way, but that is kind of what we're doing. When I hear content creator, I think of like some teenager or some guy in mom's basement, and you're watching him play video games and he's talking about it, with a spaghetti stained shirt. But I guess we're kind of doing that. But with April and George, I've created this program to be a proper, dare I say, standard almost progressive political talk program based on your phone calls and based on what's happening in the world at that moment. And the phone calls haven't come, and that stinks. But we're still here. And, it doesn't appear that we're going to have any calls again tonight. And we've approached 8. So I think it's about time that we say goodnight to you for now. There's no sense in listening to me prattle on even further. I don't have a lot more to bring to you tonight anyway. But let me just say this. Let me just wrap up with a couple of items. While we were on the air, SpaceX has launched 4 astronauts into space successfully and healthy, and everyone is fine. Everything went well. They are on their way to the International Space Station. And you might think to yourself, why does that matter? When Dr. Brock and I are talking about such grand and broad concepts as massive wealth inequality, why are we even doing such things as a country? Because we are a big country. We can walk and chew gum. We can do several things. We are the country that we've always been. That country. We're the country that had a Great Depression, but yet fought a war to defeat fascism. And that's, by the way, what the war was about. We are the war. We are the nation that then repatriated, millions of soldiers and then built the interstate highway system. We can do both. And the technological and scientific advances that have come from the space program are innumerable. And it's more than just tang and memory foam. It's they're innumerable. And we can do both. And science does matter. And it's important. And we can do these things. And so think about that. And, think about what Dr. Brock said. These are our friends and neighbors the 71 million people who voted against their own self-interest are still our friends and neighbors. And they need us. And we need to have these conversations again. We have to begin, I say at the end of every program, we have to have these conversations. We have to start talking again about facts and truth and science, and we have to stop screaming at each other, even though we're the ones generally being screamed at. We have to start having these conversations again. We can put this country back together, and we're going to have to. And if we can't, we're not going to be one nation. Again, we'll be two or three or more. And so this work has to begin. So let me just do a little bit of business, and then we will say goodnight. If you are with us live, we're thrilled that you've been with us. If you've been with us for the whole program or any portion of which, thank you. Each and every single one of you. It's important. You matter. Every single one of you matter. We're glad that you were here, and we hope that you will always be here. I do not, as of yet, have a guest lined up for next week. Guests have been, I knew it was going to get a little rough after the election, and it's been exactly as I expected. It has been rough to get guests booked post-election, but we'll be back here. Don't worry, we're not going anywhere. We'll be back next week. You can always find all things The Kennedy Effect at our home Facebook page, That Other Side of Information. And you can not only just watch episodes of the program there, but you will see the news articles that we post there all week, including April will post there, George will post there, I post there. Other friends will request that I post their articles there. Some of them I do and some of them I don't. So you will see a variety of news articles there. Please visit the page. You can get caught up on news, and it's not just political news. We put science articles there. We put a lot of news articles there about the environment. I will sneak in an article every now and then about Manchester United. You will just have to live with that. Just deal with it, folks. All things good and great at Manchester United. You will just have to deal with that. But visit the page. It is a news source for you. I do not post a lot. I do post the occasional opinion piece, but not many. Most articles that are there are news and fact, and that's it. Not a lot of opinion. They are news and fact. So visit the page. It is a quick place to get caught up. You can see this program. George, when he returns from his holiday with family, will transfer it to LinkedIn and Instagram and the YouTube channel. You will be able to watch it there. The email is always open. You do not need to only email us during the live program. You can email us anytime you wish. That Other Kennedy, all one word, That Other Kennedy, no caps, by the way, at gmail.com. That Other Kennedy at gmail.com. You can tweet me anytime you wish. If you do not follow me on Twitter, please, I invite you to do so. At That Kennedy Talk. There are some caps in there and stuff, but I think if you just search that, you'll probably find it. I am by no means am I an expert on Twitter, but I think if you search my name, Jeff Kennedy, or if you search the program, or you'll find me. I think George has it set up so that if you search the program or search my name, I think George is listening. He hasn't texted in a while, but I think he's still listening. You'll find us at That Kennedy Talk. There are some caps in there and stuff, but I think you'll find us if you search broadly enough. You'll find us. Give us a like, follow us. It'll be yet another way that you can keep up with the program. It's yet another way that you can watch the program. George usually posts the program at Twitter as well, at That Kennedy Talk. So you have the email, you have the Twitter, you have the Facebook page, but you can also get the program. You can see it over my shoulder at, where can you get that? We have the Facebook, the YouTube, the Instagram, That Other Side of Information on Instagram. And we are constantly looking at new places to put the program. We're considering Periscope, and we're looking at some other places to put the program as well. So just, stay with us. We're always looking to grow the program, and we're always looking at new ways to bring it to you. We're always looking at new ways for you to be a part of it. The phone number is still on the screen, and I haven't shut my trap yet. So if you want to call us, you can. We had great comments in the live chat on Facebook. I mean, Ashley has been so cool to stay with us for the whole show. Liz has been with us for the majority of it. We had Melissa was in, Sharon, Mara, I'm probably not saying that right. Marah, I'm probably butchering that. Linda, Jennifer, Shelby, Dara, Darlene, Jolly, Larry, David Rodriguez, my dear friend who's the chair of the PA Latino Caucus, who was kind enough to let me play MC for their anniversary, which was a real honor for me to do. I was really, really thrilled to do that, really humbled and thrilled to do that. Hajir, my dear friend, who I continue to, Hajir and I are going to do a heck of a lot of work, I think, together in the future. Really thrilled that she was here this evening. Janet was here, Lisa, who am I missing? Heather, Michelle, the question we read before, Andrea, who's been a friend of mine for a good long time. We actually worked together for a while. Kathy Fox, my dear friend Kathy Fox from the Bethlehem Dems, and who is one of the heads. She is a chair of people. She's on the board. I think she'll tell me the right term at some point. From the Bethlehem Food Co-op. James Martin was here. Jeff and Lori Quinlan, Joanne, all the folks who were kind enough to join us tonight. Look, you mean the world to us, and it's why we do this program. And I just want to grow the program as much as humanly possible. If, like Dr. Brock said, if he was a billionaire, he'd give it away. Well, I would like to be, I would just like this program to be the full-time job and not the full-time job I have, but I'd like this to be the full-time job. But we need you for it. If you guys weren't here, there wouldn't be a program. So we will return next week. I'll find a guest somewhere along the way during the week, and we will return. So to our friends at hot101.net, keep listening to hot101.net. They're always there for you 24/7. To DJ Lex, DJ Earl for helping get me on hot101.net in the first place. You guys are the best. I'm proud to be part of this family. It means the world to me, and the program would not be where it is without our friends and family at hot101.net. You guys mean the world. And check out the website at hot101.net. It looks great, and it is super, super easy to use. The word simple for a website is sometimes taken as a criticism. Not this way. The hot101.net site is simple. That means it is very simple to use. It's simple to look at. It's simple to navigate. It's just a pleasant website to use. So check it out. You can get the apps as well. Listen on your phone, listen anywhere you go. And if you have Bluetooth in the car, use the app and then Bluetooth it through your speakers, and it will sound tremendous. So just check out hot101.net. Check out our friends, sisters, and brothers at hot101.net. And they have a great Facebook page, by the way. You can get to watch the DJs do their work, and it's really very cool. And they have great home studios, and they got the lights going, and everything is just very, very cool. Much more fun to look at than this thing happening here, although George and I are going to work on that. But to my dear friend April Riddick, who I wouldn't be on Hot101.net without her either. This program wouldn't have started without April, because as much as I wanted to do this program, I never thought I could get it together, and she proved to me that I could. And there'll be some news about April coming soon. I'm not going to ruin it. I'm not going to, scoop any of that, but there's going to be some April news coming soon, but we'll get to that when it is more appropriate. And to George, we missed you this week, George, but George will be with us. I believe he'll be back on the air with us next week. He's enjoying some very well-deserved time with family. And so we'll be back next week. Until then, watch the news, stay informed, be part of society, be informed, be an informed person, be an informed voter, be an informed member of society, and talk to your neighbors. Check in on your neighbors. Listen, these pandemic numbers are not fake. This is not a fake story. This is real. People are getting sick. They are dying. There was a study out of Europe. I want to say it was out of Germany, but I may have that wrong. That one in five COVID survivors have been diagnosed with a mental illness. As a direct result, in some way, shape, or form, they're not exactly sure the connection quite yet. 1 in 5 COVID survivors have a mental illness. We've talked on past programs about the heart scarring or the heart viruses related to COVID that have attacked the heart stimulated by COVID, the lung scarring, the brain scarring. This is a serious thing, folks. So please stay safe. Look, you have to go to work. You have to buy groceries. You need to go to the bank. You need to put gas in the car. We get all that. But just stay safe. Wash your hands. Wash your face. Wear a mask. If you have senior, elderly neighbors, family, friends, check on them. Say hello. Make sure they're okay. And take care of the kids. Watch what's happening at school. If you're doing online, great. But if the kids are still going to school in person, make sure they're okay. Make sure they're wearing their masks. If they're wearing reusable masks, make sure they're clean. If they're wearing paper, then, throw them out, get a clean one, all that fun stuff. Just be smart. Keep an eye on things. And until we see you again next week, then take care of yourselves, take care of each other. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Until then, good night for now.